I'm about to start recording.
Do we
Okay.
have Ebony on?
No, but hers is until 9:30.
Okay, so she'll come later. All right.
Yeah. Put yourselves on mute when it hits 9.
I'm putting us.
Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the first ever virtual conference on resilience, success, and triumphs among children of incarcerated parents. We are extremely grateful for your participation and engagement during these trying times in our country. As day 2 focuses on respect, we are determined to force the society to put some respect on the names of all of those who have experienced parental incarceration. Please allow me to introduce Associate Professor and Interim Chair of the Department of Sociology and Criminology at Howard University, Dr. Terry Adams. In this brief segment, Dr. Adams will talk about her work around resilience in the face of disasters, in addition to sharing information on the graduate and undergraduate programs in criminology. Please unmute your mic before speaking.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me start out by saying that on behalf of the Department of Sociology and Criminology, I welcome you to the second day of this important conference on children of incarcerated parents. I'd like to thank Dr. Muhammad and the newly minted Dr. Gatewood, as well as Ms. Turner, for the hard work that they've put into and poured into this important effort. We are at a critical moment in this country as we face the COVID-19 worldwide pandemic. We are confronted with the fact that we are only as healthy as the person that's literally standing next to us. And at the same time in this country, as we begin, this country is starting to awaken to having a greater awareness of the injustices faced by Black and Brown people. And that how we know that this has been going on for an extended period of time, but for some reason at this moment in history, with the death of Mr. Floyd, we've come to this critical point of really squarely facing these. And so the important topic addressed in this conference is a part, I think, of this larger conversation of the injustices embedded in our criminal justice system, because children of the incarcerated are often the forgotten victims. And at the same time, we have to take pause to acknowledge that our future as a nation is only as bright as the child's dream standing next to us. So my work informs us that resilience is key to overcoming any challenge and any crisis. And so as we're faced with looking at how do we function during a pandemic, and at the same time, how do we address injustices in this moment in time, we know that resilience is key. And you all had a whole session on resilience yesterday. And so with that said, I would say that resilience, respect, and triumph, the key principles that you're addressing in this conference, are the same components that will allow anyone to overcome a crisis. And so I applaud Dr. Muhammad, Dr. Gatewood, as well as Ms. Turner in the hard work that they've poured into this, and for selecting these topics as the key themes, and that you're focused on the highs instead of the lows. So our department is special in that we look injustice squarely in the face, and we don't tiptoe around it. We have open dialogues about the injustices faced for Black and Brown people across a variety of different aspects of social life. So I would invite anyone who thinks they're remotely interested in attaining either a master's degree or a PhD degree to check us out. We have a pretty active webpage, and if you could send an email directly to me at tadams-fuller@howard.edu. And Dr. Muhammad is also always willing and available to talk to people about the work that she does, as well as about the work of our department. And so with that, I'll pass it back to Ms. Turner.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adams, for all of your work in the field and your exemplary leadership for all Black scholars at Howard University. With that being said, I am honored to introduce to you the Howard University, Dr. Brittany Gatewood, Project Director and Executive Conference team member of this national study. Dr. Gatewood will speak to the connection of Black Lives Matter and other social justice topics within the lives of children of incarcerated parents. She will highlight study findings and themes surrounding this topic in the interviews conducted by the research team. This talk will center the importance of the narratives within this current climate and within scholarship. Please unmute your mic before speaking.
Hello. And thank you for the introduction, Sydney. So as she said, my name is Dr. Brittany Gatewood, and I am the project director for our study on resiliency and successes of children of incarcerated parents. If you are on the sessions yesterday, you may have seen my name come up in the chat box doing a lot of behind the scenes works for the conference, which I will continue to do today and tomorrow. Before I begin, I just want to remind you all of some housekeeping. If you have any questions, you can either put them in the chat box or place them in the Q&A box and we will answer them. If you want more information about our panelists, our executive team, keynotes, such as our social media, please refer to the program which is located on our website. Please also use the hashtags #FlipTheScript, COIP, and hashtag success COIP so we can follow you on social media and see what you all are saying about the conference. Yesterday, we heard from amazing panelists and speakers about their experiences of being children of incarcerated parents. In one particular panel entitled Not a Statistics, panelists said one thing that resonated with me and connects to the topic of social justice and activism that I will be speaking to you today about. It was commented by our panelists that people are not putting faces or names to the statistics about children of incarcerated parents. Therefore, it does not humanize the population that is being studied because the number has no soul or no connection to a person. This humanization is what the current movement for Black lives is asking for. These past few weeks, we have seen hundreds of uprisings, protests, and marches nationwide due to the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others by police. People are taking to the streets to demand criminal justice reform, including defunding the police. Although I'm excited and moved by this response, we have to acknowledge that this movement did not begin with Black Lives Matter in 2014. It has existed since the establishment of the police department in 1844, and even before that with the slave patrols. The brutality in which the Black community has faced by the hands of police and within the criminal justice system is degrading, devaluing, disgusting, and inhumane, and has existed for generations. Alongside this brutality, the Black community has resisted this oppression, and Black women especially have led the charge against our treatment by society and our mistreatment in all of our social institutions that wish to still see us in shackles and chains and not as actual human beings. What is not stated in the current scholarship is that children of incarcerated parents have been community leaders and activists within this realm. Activists have championed for criminal justice reform due to the detrimental ramifications on individuals and specifically within Black communities. It has been documented that those that advocated for criminal justice reform have come into contact with the system either through personal experience or through associations such as with parents, other family members, or friends. However, gaps in the social movement research lack the analysis of children of incarcerated parents' political activity. Extensive research shows that parental incarceration has affected the outcomes of their children. Most of the research focuses on their problems, is based on the likelihood of them entering the criminal justice system and the negative consequences of parental incarceration. Thus, researchers have not attempted to explore their contributions to the communities as leaders and activists. This is what our research about, is changing how we view this population and changing how we research children of incarcerated parents. The political practices of parents influence community engagement of their children. You can see this by little kids going to protests or even high schoolers being influenced by their parents to their social justice beliefs. What research falls short is viewing incarcerated people specifically as political actors before, during, and after their confinement. Thus, the researchers do not explore how political activity or attitudes of incarcerated parents influence their children. Many of the respondents within our study speak about their parents and the conversations they have about social justice issues. And many times it is their parents that got them interested in certain topics, such as Black Lives Matter, women's rights, LGBT rights, or criminal justice reform. As with most mainstream criminology and sociological research, if it does not put Black people in negative light or criminalize their behavior, the Academy does not want to see it. This research uses an approach to gain a larger understanding of these children, which is not captured in the current research. We are attempting to flip the script, as our hashtag says, about children of incarcerated parents to show that they are leaders within the community. Children of incarcerated parents such as Tony Lewis Jr. or Bree Anderson, which we're talking yesterday, have become activists and political leaders for criminal justice reform. Movements such as We Got Us Now, which is led by a keynote speaker who will be speaking next, Ebony Underwood, are led by these children of incarcerated parents. It is this population that is influenced by the lives of their parents, and they have chosen to advocate for their parents' lives and for other children of incarcerated parents. In addition, they also are included in a various amount of other social justice issues and not just criminal justice reform. By focusing on the factors which led prisoners' children to become political actors, we are able to create a more robust and well-rounded picture of their lives. In our preliminary findings, we see that each and every child of an incarcerated parent participates in community engagement and activism. What I discovered in this research project, as well in my own personal research on incarcerated Black women, is that this population is resisting and they don't even know that they're doing it. Most people think of political engagement and activism looks like marching in the streets, chaining yourself to City Hall, or toppling over a racist statue. But there are many more ways to be involved within a social movement that does not involve such direct action and such interactions with police directly. People such as the participants you saw yesterday, Bree, Ukiya, Alfonso, Miss Moody, Arthur Q, Jasmine, just to name a few, have started businesses, they wrote books, and they advocated for legislation which would benefit their incarcerated parent. Although their names aren't currently, even though they will be, in history books, their efforts and leadership should not go unrecognized. If you didn't know, people like Terrence Howard, Nicki Minaj, even Tyga, and we all know Tupac, they are all in children of incarcerated parents. And they have spoken about social justice issues on their platforms being celebrities. Even white celebrities that are being decent allies to Black Lives Matter, like Drew Barrymore, experience parental incarceration. Children of incarcerated parents are everywhere, and they're movers and shakers even if we don't know their background, yet we still discredit them and do not talk about the significant impact their parental incarceration has had on their lives. One study that recently came out shows that Black women have the most ties to incarceration out of any race or gender. This means that many Black women, including myself, have experienced seeing their family members and friends go into the criminal justice system. And most of the times, especially within social movements of Black liberation, it is Black women that lead or begin a movement. Black women who have the most ties to incarceration are also the people that are beginning these movements against criminal justice, for criminal justice reform. Black women, who are the majority of our interviewees, were especially prone to resisting and advocating for others, as they told us within their interviews. Speaking more of what we found in our interviews, when asked why they do what they do for the community, Many of our research participants say that's just what you're supposed to do. It is inherent. Children of incarcerated parents have had community networks that have helped them and supported them during parental incarceration. And many give back to the same community. If you listen to some of the stories yesterday, you hear how involved this population is in advocating for criminal justice reform. And many were voices for their parents, their brothers, their sisters, significant others, and other people they cared about that were locked up. They were advocating on their behalf when they weren't getting the things that they needed. The movement for Black lives is not just about stopping police from kneeling on our necks or killing us while we sleep. It is about humanizing Blackness in all ways, shapes, and forms. And children of incarcerated parents in our study showed this, even if they did not see it as resisting. They are so humble and did not see how they were functioning in everyday lives included resistance. And you see this all over within the Black community in general, that resistance is inherent. There's different ways to resist: psychological techniques, individual techniques, collective techniques. So even journaling, even practicing self-care are all ways to show resistance. Therefore, it does not have to be you going to a march, you going to a protest, you speaking in front of a crowd of 1,000 people. It's the fact that you're waking up and you are deciding to go about your life despite all the oppression and despite all of the pressure it is on you every day just to be a Black person. For children of incarcerated parents, this looks like advocating on behalf of a father who is not receiving meds while they're locked up. This also looks like giving incarcerated family members a brief respite and liberating their minds just for a moment on the phone by always picking up their call. This looks like putting money in the commissary so that their parents can buy life-saving supplies that are not provided by the institution. This also looks like reposting or retweeting on social media things that involve Black Lives Matter, things that involve defunding the police or other social justice issues. They are putting out to the population and to their friends and to the public their beliefs against or for certain issues. This also looks like having critical conversation with friends. So a lot of times you have to have difficult conversations, and some of the interviewees also talked about telling their experience and telling their stories to their friends and families who had no idea these things were going on. This is resistance. This also looks like waking up every day and existing within a Black body. Us opening up our eyes in the morning is an act of defiance. Children of incarcerated parents sharing their story is an act of political warfare because they are speaking truth when the world tries to silence them. They are actively sharing their stories and openly sharing their stories with us so we can disseminate our findings and educate the world about their successes, them as leaders, and them working in their community. As researchers, it is our job to uplift and center their voices so that people know that they're there and they have stories to tell. Resisting is ingrained within Black culture, and we resist oppression and stand up for what we believe in and fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And with the children of incarcerated parents within our study, they do this all the time. One story that sticks out to me with a participant was the fact that she was advocating for her father to get the meds that he needed because he had an illness and they were not giving him all the meds that he needed. So calling the warden, writing letters to everyone that she possibly could, just so that it helps their incarcerated father. So these things, even though it might seem I'm just sticking up for my father, my brother, my sister, or whoever, is also making an impact on the institution. If all and most children of incarcerated parents are constantly calling, constantly writing, constantly talking against incarceration, carceral institutions in general, they are making an impact. People hear and see their voices, even if they think that they're invisible. But we, with this research, want to show that we see you. We see what you're doing. We applaud what you're doing. And you as community members, you as advocates for your family members, you are making a difference even if you don't think you are. And so one thing we want to stress, especially with our research and going forward, and as Dr. Muhammad has said yesterday, and we'll probably talk to more today, is that we're going to have an upcoming white paper that talks about some of the basic things that we have, some of the preliminary things we have learned, but also in upcoming articles about this research, talking about the leadership within this community. Many people within this that are children of incarcerated parents work in community organizations or even have opened up their own community organizations because they saw a gap in what was given to them. There are many people that we have talked to, and even you can see on the videos on the website where they talk to other children of incarcerated parents. They want to share their story with them and also help other people who didn't have resources like they didn't have when they were growing up. We need to acknowledge them as leaders, and many leaders within the Black Lives Matter movement and within Say Her Name, Defund the Police, and all these other movements are children of incarcerated parents. So we need to realize that this is an anomaly, right? There are millions of children that have parents that were incarcerated, and especially in the Black community has the highest percentage of parents that have gone into the criminal justice system. Most women that are in correctional facilities also are mothers. So before you going into incarceration, many of the mothers or fathers were resisting. They were protesting. They were marching. So they gave this information to their children. And their children are also doing the same things as adults. So in closing, I want to share that children of incarcerated parents and what they do for their parents and others, their story should not be left out of the history of the movement of Black lives. We see Black Lives Matter hashtag, Black Lives Matter posts, defund the police, all these things, but realizing that a lot of people that are leading these movements, that are retweeting, reposting, that are going to the marches, that are standing up against police and getting tear gas, are children of incarcerated parents or know someone that is incarcerated. So it's not just about the police that's going on. We need to defend Black lives in all aspects, whether criminal justice, healthcare, education, and all the other social institutions. On our website, you can view short videos on interviewees' responses to questions of community service and social justice. You can also view their advice to children of incarcerated parents. So they have told advice to other people so they can know how to deal with the stress, how to take the triumphs, and how to be successful. And this is a way to imprint history and also resist by sharing their story and trying to uplift other people, which society does not want Black people to uplift other Black people. As our research is being published, we will explore more in depth on this subject matter and hope that everyone that is everyone that is protesting on the streets stay safe, practice self-care, and of course, hashtag Say Her Name and Black Lives Matter. And I will turn it over to Sydney, who will introduce our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gatewood, for producing those research findings. I will now be introducing Ebony Underwood, who will present today's keynote address titled, "The Time is Always Now, Action Today, Tomorrow, and Forever." Ebony Underwood is the founder and CEO of We Got Us Now, a national nonprofit, nonpartisan organization and movement built and led by children and young adults impacted by parental incarceration. As a child of an incarcerated parent, Ebony will discuss her journey to healing, advocacy, and action. Her life's work and mission is to engage, educate, elevate, and empower this historically invisible population through the use of digital narratives, safe spaces, and advocacy-led campaigns. In doing so, We Got Us Now ensures their voices are at the forefront of strategic initiatives, practices, and policies that will help to keep families connected, create fair sentencing, and end mass incarceration. Please unmute your mic before speaking.
Hi. Thank you so much, Sydney. I appreciate that beautiful, warm welcome. My name is Ebony Underwood, as she said, and I am now about to give you all this keynote address. But before I do, I'd like to first thank you, Dr. Gatewood, for that incredible speech you just gave. That was moving. I hear you on so many levels. I also like to be able to thank Dr. Muhammad. I just want to say to you, Dr. Muhammad, I am honored by your brilliance. I am thrilled to be in partnership with you today at this first ever Children of Incarcerated Parents Resilience, Success, and Triumphs Digital Conference today, which is June 18, 2020. I have to name that. Okay, let's get into it. So today, my panel is called The Time Is Always Now, Action Today, Tomorrow, and Forever. The overarching theme for today, day 2 of this 3-day conference, is respect. And respect for me is, respect is really, really a big, big deal for me. But it doesn't stand alone. You know, for me, respect is encapsulated in love and healing and accountability when it comes to the issue of children of incarcerated parents. So for me, the first thing that I would say is like, how did we get here, right? And for me, how did I get here? I want to first bring you all into my world and show you how all of this began for me. So I'm going to show you a video called Ebony's Story. Hold on one second. Let's share my screen and I'm going to show you all. "28 years ago, my father was taken away from me and my siblings. My father was later convicted to life under a mandatory minimum sentence. I remember being on the phone with my dad and asking him, do you mean forever? Is this forever? And he's like, Ebony, no matter how much I've changed, no matter how much my life's changed, no matter how the laws have changed, what they're saying is that this is forever. And so it becomes this emotional roller coaster that we lived for so many years, for so long. I never, ever discussed this with anybody because I never knew that anybody was going through this. My father is an incredible dad. For the 28 years that he's been there, he has written us. He has called us almost every day. He has given us birthday cards, holiday cards. When I graduated, I got a graduation card. When I became a mother, I got flowers in my labor in the hospital room. So many moments. You know, he hasn't been physically there, but his presence, despite prison walls, he has absolutely been an incredible dad. It's like emotional for me.
The investigation, but I think we need to step back. You know, you asked Dan a minute.
To be a part of my son and my nephew's life is really painful. It's really painful for me. There's a whole population of people that have just been silently suffering through this whole entire experience. We are sending these drug offenders away for decades at a time, ripping them apart from their families, their children. We have to stop. This is wrong. We have to heal. And it's time to heal and do the right thing. Do the right thing. It's time for America to do the right thing. Over 10 million children at some point in their life have been impacted by parental incarceration in the United States. That is an epidemic. 10 million people are walking around with this pain, silently suffering? No, we got to do something.
Okay, so I'm back. That's always so difficult for me to watch. Wow. So yeah, that's where it started for me. That video was about 4 years ago. I got into this advocacy work a year prior to that. And for the last 5 years, I've been doing this work. But as I was sharing, this is all about how did I get there? And it started with love. It really started with the love that I have for the two people that brought me into this world. And I'm going to name them, William and Sherry. William and Sherry, those are my parents. Both of my parents come from extremely impoverished upbringings. My mom is from the South Bronx. She grew up there 50 years ago, but it still, unfortunately, is a food desert and one of the lowest income communities in the country. And my father is from the drug-infested Harlem that once was here. And due to those circumstances and due to their upbringing, when they had me, the one thing that is a constant for me throughout my life that came from my parents outside of the love that they've always shown was the importance of education. I mean, my parents were determined in ensuring that I received a proper education, as they did not want me to have, or have to experience what they've experienced, the poverty, the lack of education, the lack of resources. They wanted better for me, they really wanted better for me. So when my father was arrested, when William was arrested 31 years ago, that love, it did not stop. It was tough love, but it did not stop. And in retrospect, I understand now how incessant he was about me continuing to educate myself. So today, as a daughter, as a woman, as a mother, the relationship that I developed with my incarcerated father, William Underwood, over the last 31 years has shaped my life personally and professionally. And I believe it is only fitting for me to begin shifting that narrative about who he was and show you who my 66-year-old father, William Underwood, has been over the last 30 years behind bars. He was incarcerated in the late 1980s and 1988 to be exact. And in 1990, he was sentenced to life without parole as a drug offender. And, with COVID-19 present, I am in deep, deep prayer right now because my father is 66 years old and he's considered part of the most vulnerable population, according to the CDC. And so when I think about him being in a federal prison, which is a petri dish for what this coronavirus pandemic is, I just am really disheartened because he has been an incredible man over the 3 decades that he has been inside. And I don't want you to just take my word for it, because as his daughter, people would automatically assume that I was biased in this. But I want to show you. I want to show you, not from my words, but from some people that know him, and give you some insight onto who he is. So I'm going to show you another video. Hold on one second. Okay. share my screen again. Okay, you guys, here we go.
During my time in federal prison, I was an FCI Raybro. I met William Underwood at FCI Raybro. We were there together for approximately 5 years. He has been a mentor to so many men in Federal Bureau of Prison. He's been a friend. He's been a big brother. He's been a father figure. He's been anything positive that you could think about.
Number one, besides God, is his mom's. Like you talk about every single day, his mother, his daughters, his sons, his grandchildren. That was what fueled him every day in his memories of when he was in the music business. His family needs to win. They're the ones who've been pushing so many years.
Anyone that has the opportunity to meet him or be with him have to say that this guy is phenomenal. Especially to be in jail all those years, his heart is not cold, his mind is clear. I really hope that he can get an opportunity to get his sentence commuted.
He deserves a second chance. His children deserve to get the opportunity to know the man that their father is today. The community needs that opportunity. Because if he is able to help change lives in such a desolate place, could you imagine what he can do if he returned to society? And if we claim that we're a nation of second chances, a man that has changed his life surely deserves a second chance.
Our children will never know the joy of spending time with their grandfather outside of prison walls. We lost our grandmother. She will never, ever have the chance to spend time with her son outside of prison walls.
That's all.
All right, y'all good? Yes, good. All right, I'll call y'all later, all right? All right, we love you.
Peace and blessings. Can't wait for you to be here.
Love y'all.
Can't wait for you to get here, Dad. Can't wait for you to get here.
So that's my dad. And as I was saying, it was better for me to show you all. Those were 4 men who have never met each other, 4 separate occasions, 4 different men who have reached out to me and my family to share with us about the type of man that our father is. And wow, you know, I know in my heart and my soul that he doesn't belong there, but to hear that from men that he has either mentored or shared space with over the last 31 years, it just lets me know that the reason why I'm in this work and why I continue to do this work is so important. There's these narratives that have continued to be perpetuated about who Black people are. And it's really, really, really just shameful. And so when I think about the Day of Respect and why it's so important for me in this research space around children of incarcerated parents, it's really important. The main reason why is when I got into this work, I got in it not as someone that came into this work as a researcher. My background is in marketing and promotion in the entertainment business. I'm also a producer and a content creator. So I really came into this work after having never spoken about this experience with any of my peers, only my very close friends and my siblings, but rarely, even in those conversations, we rarely spoke about these things. And so when I heard back in 2014 that the Obama administration wanted to reform the criminal justice system, I said, gosh, I should actually say something, right? Like if the president is saying something, and I had known at that point, it had been 20 years that my father was incarcerated, or 20 something, over 20 years that he had been incarcerated. I said, gosh, he's been such a great dad. The least that I can do is actually say something at this point, right? Like my son has never had the opportunity to meet him outside of prison walls. My nephew has never had the opportunity to meet him outside of prison walls. Who I should try. I should at least fight to see, maybe potentially if the president hears from us, maybe he would grant my father clemency. And so I started by creating a website called imprison.net. Thereafter, I created a documentary short called Hope for Father's Day, because my siblings and I believe that whatever day my father comes home, it would be considered Father's Day. But I'm just going to put out into the world. I know today is Thursday and Sunday is Father's Day, but by some miracle, I pray that Father's Day 2020, my father comes home. I'm going to put it into the universe because that's what I do, because the universe conspires. But as I began to learn more about this issue of, reforming what mass incarceration has caused, I soon found out that the president of the United States at the time had an initiative for children of incarcerated parents. And I was blown away because I'm a pretty informed person. I'm an avid reader. I've definitely gotten my education, went to school, graduated, was part of a legal program, was a Skadden Arps scholar, but I had never heard this term. And I was floored by the fact that there was a term for what I had been living for the majority of my life. How was that even possible? And that the president at the highest level of government had an initiative for this. And so I made it my business to learn every and anything about children of incarcerated parents, who is doing this work, what are they doing with this work, what is happening in this space. And I soon found out that there were many organizations across the country that actually advocated for children of incarcerated parents. But all the data and research surrounding this newfound term for me was wrought with negativity. Empathetic to the fact that, these children are innocent bystanders of this experience. But the narrative. And so the work seemed to suggest that if we don't save these children before they turn 18, because the work was primarily focused on children under the age of 18, that they will end up incarcerated just like their parents. I have 3 siblings and many cousins that have had this experience of having a parent incarcerated. It was just that time when we grew up. A lot of our parents were selling drugs. And unfortunately, this shame and this stigma and this narrative has continued to be perpetuated about who we are in our efforts to survive. And don't get me wrong, I do not condone the use of selling drugs. But I have to say that not one of my siblings or any of my cousins have been incarcerated. We all did learn from that experience. In their efforts to try to provide a better life for us, we did go and garner our educations. We did try our best to do our best, to be better. And I just really want to shift this narrative about who we are in an effort to protect our families and to keep our families connected. And this system of mass incarceration, which I liken to a tsunami that has ripped across this country, destroying our communities and ripping apart our families, has got to stop. We cannot have another generation of mass incarceration. That has got to stop. So why was this research so negative, right? That was the question that I asked. Why was it so negative? Who are they talking to? Like, what children of incarcerated parents are they talking to? No one in my family have had this experience. So I began to do further research, and I began to determine that although it was empathetic to the issue, it was severely fragmented. And so I decided then and there that I was going to go around the country and meet as many children who had been impacted by this experience as possible. I wanted them to know that they were not alone. They did not have to live under the guise of shame in this experience. that there is strength in healing from this traumatizing experience. And We Got Us Now is the national organization that will amplify and advocate for children of incarcerated parents by creating safe and inclusive spaces first through healing that will build community for us, that will produce qualitative data and research through informed digital content, and work to ensure that we are equipping, developing, and training young directly impacted daughters and sons who aim to advocate for a just criminal legal system in our society with the tools. We're going to equip them with the tools for professional and personal development. So that brings me now to accountability. I talked about the love. I talked about the respect, but you can't have respect without accountability. That just doesn't work in my world. And so why I founded We Got Us Now, I'm going to show you a video because that's what I do. I create content. So hold on.
My name is Ebony Underwood. I want to thank you all for coming and joining me tonight. I am the founder CEO of We Got Us Now. We Got Us Now is an organization that is built by, led by, and about children of incarcerated parents. The United States is the great mass incarcerator. We are 5% of the world's population, and yet and still, we incarcerate the most people on the planet. The most people on the planet. And 2.3 million of those people that are incarcerated, 50% of them are parents. That's horrible. So I'm like, we got to change that. So as I began to do my research as a social justice fellow, and then as the founder CEO of We Got Us Now, I started to realize that this issue is not a monolithic issue. Most of the organizations that are doing this work do it at the state and at the local level. There was like this underserved population, which was the children and young adults that have been impacted at the federal level. I wanted to make sure that we were serving the entire population, not just at the local level, not just at the state level, but at the federal level and at all levels. And so I wanted to figure out what are the issues that we need to focus on at all of those levels, because there are many levels to this. What are the issues that we need to focus on? What is happening on the ground at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level? And who are our allies? So I did a lot of research, really figuring out what this was. On August 6, 2018, Mayor de Blasio passed this bill to protect directly impacted communities from spending we spend $10 million annually on calls to New York City jails. So I said, you know what? Really excited to hear about this work. I wanted to uplift the different organizations that are doing this work because I feel like this is our goal and our mission to raise awareness about what's happening so people can understand. So I want to shout out the Corrections Accountability Project and Color of Change, because now all New York City jail phone calls are free. At the state level, we're trying to have parents, incarcerated parents, move to facilities that are closer to their children. So our most underserved population is the federal level. So the federal policy that we've been advocating for is for the aging incarcerated parents. Like I said, I was an adolescent when my father was incarcerated. I'm now an adult. It's been 3 decades. And so we're urging the sitting president to specifically look at elderly drug offenders who were incarcerated under really harsh, draconian sentences and change that narrative because they pose no risk to society. You age out of criminality. So it's really important for us to make people aware about what's happening at the federal level. So we have to make everybody aware. That's why We Got Us Now is here, so that we can make people aware of what's happening on the ground and make sure that people are advocating for our needs. We decided we are going to be accountable for us and not wait for someone else to do the work.
So that's We Got Us Now. And that is where I believe that accountability starts. For me, the mission of We Got Us Now is simple. It's advocacy and action. And let me give you a little description of what that looks like. So for advocacy, as a producer of content, it's been really important for me to ensure that We Got Us Now creates digital narratives to tell our stories. It was always extremely important for us to do that. It was also really important for us to create safe and inclusive spaces. When I began to, discover these children from all across the country, I soon saw that so many of them were really wrought with shame and stigma, and they did not want to share. And I wanted them to know that I was, I'm here. You're not alone. We come from all different walks of life. There's this, of course, the brown and Black people. We are primarily, I'll say Black people are primarily targeted, but incarceration happens across the country in all forms and at all levels. It's not just impoverished people, it's people at all levels of society. And so that narrative, it just, for me, I wanted to change that. I did not want to focus solely on little children either. A lot of the research and work had been done to focus on children under the age of 18, but there is no magic button that happens when someone turns 18 and everything goes away. So I wanted to make sure that we were building a community for the entire population. I also wanted to ensure that we produce advocacy-led campaigns, not just in sharing our stories. It was really important for us to share our voices and ensure that we were at the forefront of strategic initiatives, practices, and policies. And we focus on 3 specific areas when it comes to our policy priorities. We work to help to keep our families connected. We currently have a Keep Families Connected campaign from Mother's Day to Father's Day that we just produced. And we also work to create fair sentencing, working to ensure that these draconian sentences that so many of our parents have received are eliminated and dismantled. And then ultimately to end mass incarceration. Like I said earlier, we don't want to have another system of mass incarceration. That has to end. And then the second piece is our action. We Got Us Now works from 4 guiding principles. We work to engage, educate, elevate, and empower the millions of marginalized, historically invisible population of children and young adults who have experienced a parent behind bars. And we do this through our Action is Leadership program. This Action is Leadership program launched in January of 2020. We have 10 incredible leaders from all across the country. They too use these guiding principles as directly impacted daughters and sons. And what we've been doing with these actionists has been developing them into subject matter experts. Although they come to the table as subject matter experts, I believe that when it comes to doing advocacy, you must have a proven commitment to reform the criminal legal system. I mean, this is a monster that you cannot do alone. And so your experience alone as a daughter or a son that has been impacted is so incredibly helpful, but you need to be equipped with tools. And so we work to develop and train these young people through action and advocacy within their respective cities and states to ensure that they are equipped with the information around what reform looks like. And so throughout today, you will hear from members of the We Got Us Now community across the country. They'll all be sharing about the policies and the practices that we're working on. They'll talk about the importance of self-care through healing and wellness. You'll hear from our voices in research, and you'll hear from some of our actionists who are actually entrepreneurs and what it looks like to bring Black girl magic into this space. And with that, I think that is it for me. I just, again, would like to thank Dr. Muhammad. If you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but if not, then I'm happy to move on. And again, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Muhammad, for creating this incredible, brilliant space for us. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for acknowledging us. And thank you for honoring our strengths. I guess we're going to wait for a question. Okay, I don't think there's any more questions. And so I think that we are now going to go into a break before we go into our next panel. Thank you all for joining me. Bye.
Ebony, we actually do have a question for you. So if you want to jump right back on the screen and answer this specific question.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, okay, great. Hey, so the question is, what would you want practitioners to know about the population? So focusing on the children of incarcerated parents, what specific things should practitioners know about this population and how they can assist in helping them?
I would say that practitioners should know that these young people are subject matters in this experience. We all come to the table with different experiences as it relates to having a parent behind bars, but practitioners should absolutely respect these children and their viewpoints. You know, the way that we do this work, as I said, is equipping young people with the tools for what's happening around the country in regards to policies. What policies have been in place? What policies need to be revised? What policies need to be still instituted? And a lot of times, young people aren't equipped with that information. They do come to the table with the personal experience and the personal expertise. But when it comes down to the policies, you know, we got to now, this is what we do. We work to, this is what separates us from a lot of different organizations, is the fact that we work to inform our young people and equip them with this information around how to work to change things. Thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your participation in this. Like, your story is amazing. I'm over here in tears. I'm like, Ebony, it's only 9:20 in the morning. But I do want to introduce Dr. Muhammad. If you can unmute your screen and your microphone to give you a thanks. Thank you so much, Ebony, for your participation. So Dr. Muhammad, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning and welcome to the conference. As you can see, we have hit the ground running. I just want to give greetings to Ebony Underwood from We Got Us Now, who gave a phenomenal drop the mic presentation and visual. Thank you so much for being honest and sharing your story. I couldn't think of any organization across the nation that was more deserving of the platform to engage in a dialogue, the first dialogue around respect. Not only did you highlight the importance of respecting the family and humanizing your father by using his name, humanizing those individuals that oftentimes we want to throw away and forget about. We are not talking about animals. We are talking about individuals. We are not talking about statistics. We are talking about humans. We are talking about individuals that have names, that have legacy, that have an understanding, and that will continue to chart the path forward. If we get it right as researchers or not, that lived experience continues with or without us. So today is about joining that movement. And I think it's very important that you talked about with your organization that we just don't have lip service, that there is action that goes into the things that individuals engage in strategically as they begin to dismantle the criminal and justice system in America KK. I think today, as we talk about respect as our overarching theme, which you so beautifully allowed for the frame of that, following the presentation that we had from Dr. Gatewood, which really highlighted this understanding of resistance and just maintaining contact with those individuals that you love. Hold on, sister, because we are all praying for this to be that Father's Day. You deserve it. The world deserves it. And continue to fight. Continue to allow us to know as allies what we need to do. Allow us to get into position so that we can back you, support you, and compensate you for the experience that you endured through these injustices. We have to respect these faces. We have to respect the voices of individuals, and we have to put our emotions to the side. It doesn't matter if you've read for 10 years, 7 years, 4 years on a research topic. It has nothing against the backdrop of the lived experience. And we will talk about that today. We will talk about a world that we envision where researchers are partnering with those individuals that are directly impacted and allowing them to lead in the same way that you see in this conference. For today, Ebony Underwood took the leadership and allowed us to understand what needed to be talked about, how it should be talked about, what process it would go into, and who should be the individuals that shine a light on the realities that her, as well as all of the actionists in which she has empowered across the nation to push forward. If that is not true resistance, if that is not the truth in showing that individuals' lives matter, that Black lives matter, I don't know what else is. For today, you're going to see how respect relates to allowing individuals to speak for themselves. Writing research is one thing, and interpreting the words of individuals, yes, we understand the ways of the ivory tower. But nothing could be said better than the mouths of those individuals. You heard Ebony this morning. I can't repeat those words in that same fashion with that same spirit, because she is the seed of an individual that is experiencing the injustices of our system. We will talk about providing a platform for children of incarcerated parents to share their narratives. This is that platform. The Dr. Muhammad Experience believes that those individuals that are directly impacted are the solution. We often talk about them being close to the solution, which allows for individuals to put themselves in that equation. They are the solution. We want to empower them by dismantling the negative deficit-based perspectives. Hashtag death of the deficit. Why must we be seen in all of this negativity? You heard the question from Ebony first. We want to include you all in the work, and we want to provide compensation for your work. Please make sure you stay tuned in. We're going to have a robust dialogue and conversation on that later. And we also want to step back and allow the children of incarcerated parents to step up. Thank you so much, Ebony, for answering the call, for continuing to push forward, and also for being there to console us all. When you got the news that my father had passed, you called with a heavy heart, and that was so touching. In the midst of all that you are fighting for, you still find time to be empathetic to those of us in need, but also those of us in need and in privilege of having our parents in flesh. Thank you so much for all that you do. I empower you, sister, and today is your day. Please continue to shine, and please continue to move forward in action. Peace and blessings.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad, and thank you, Ebony, for everything, all your work with We Got Us Now. I will now be introducing the policy panel. These will all be policy makers and speakers who are all a part of the We Got Us Now actions. So I'll now be introducing Jasmine Fernandez, Ashley Jackson, Alexandra Peck, Bree Anderson, Monet Evans, and Isabel Coronado. Please unmute your mic and as well as your video. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sydney.
Thank you.
I'm going to follow Ebony's lead here and just take a moment to quickly introduce myself. My name is Jasmine Fernandez. I'm the daughter of Luis Fernandez. He was incarcerated for a total of 14 years. He would have turned 47 next Tuesday, but unfortunately he passed away behind bars in 2011. In addition to my lived experience, I started my career in the arts advocacy, youth development space, and then transitioned into government and policy 7 years ago. And so it is for these reasons that this work could not be any more relevant or any more real or any more personal to me. And I'm just so greatly honored to be able to have the opportunity to share space with this group of panelists. We have a lot to cover in a short period of time. So we're just gonna jump right in, but just to kind of frame this panel discussion, everyone has a lane in dismantling racism. And we know that now more than ever, we need to ensure that the voices of children of incarcerated parents are at the forefront of policy and research spaces. As Dr. Muhammad mentioned, it is critically important that we are actually listening to those who are experiencing it, to those who are closest to that pain. And so today I have the opportunity to hold space with a group of panelists who have so much lived experience, but also just content expertise around this subject matter. And so with that, we're gonna go right into it. Panelists, hello, good morning, welcome. You all are actively advocating and helping to shape laws, policies, and programs within your respective cities. And so I would love for you to just take a few moments to share with the audience your name, the city that you represent, and your personal connection to this work. Alexandra, let's start with you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandria Patch. I'm coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona, and I represent the state of Arizona. I'm a graduate student at the University of Arizona in the Family Studies and Human Development program. And my personal connection to this work is that I'm gonna sort of follow that model. My father was incarcerated and sentenced to 15 years to life when he was 16 years old. And he came home, when he went to prison, my mom was pregnant with me, and he didn't come home until I was 21 years old. And then when he came home, because of the way the system's set up, which is not to have a successful reintegration into society, he went back for a few years, and he didn't come home until I was around 25, which is when I met Ebony. So I've spent over 80% of my life connected to this carceral punishment system. And so that is my connection to the work I do in graduate school.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. Let's continue with Ashley.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So my name is Ashley Jackson, and I am representing Charlotte, North Carolina. So my father, Orrin Jackson, has been in federal prison since I was 6 months old. He's currently serving a 98-year sentence for a nonviolent drug-related offense. So this November will actually make the 31st year that he's been in federal prison again for this nonviolent drug offense. So that is my personal connection to this work. My professional connection, I actually work for a reentry organization here in Charlotte called the Center for Community Transitions, where I serve as a program assistant, and we focus on workforce development and job readiness. But I also have a background in human resources, and I am very adamant about using my experiences in human resources to help those integrate, like Alexandria mentioned, back into society with successful outcomes. So I take that work extremely serious. So that's my connection.
Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
And Alexandra and Ashley are both We Got Us Now actionists. I would love to give the opportunity for Isabel to introduce herself.
Jay Stungo. My name is Isabel Coronado. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation in Oklahoma. I'm an policy entrepreneur at the Next 100, where I'm based in New York City, but I work on federal and Oklahoma state policy. My connection to the work is my mom is formerly incarcerated. She was incarcerated for a few years when I was 7 years old. So I witnessed what the system can do, from police brutality when they were arresting her, all the way up to reentry, where she had troubles finding things like housing because she had a record. But through that oppressive system, my mom was able to make it out with a law degree, and now does reentry law for other returning citizens. So that's my connection to this work.
Thank you so much, Isabel. Monet?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Hi, everyone. My name is Monet Evans. I am a senior policy analyst at the New York City Mayor's Office of Operations currently. And I came into that work through a variety of different segues and backgrounds. Prior to this work, I was at Global Citizen campaigning for criminal justice reform, such as bail reform throughout New York State. I put together a campaign around the criminalization of poverty, because that stemmed from some of the research that I did in grad school at the New School. And yeah, my connection to this work is pretty much similar to what was just expressed throughout the other panelists, sadly. My father is currently incarcerated. He is serving out over a 30-year sentence for a nonviolent drug offense. And he has been incarcerated since I was 13 years old. So I feel like I got into this work advocating for him, and trying to fight on behalf of the children who experience these issues and don't have any policymakers working for them.
Thank you so much, Monet. Bree?
Good morning, everyone. I am Bree Anderson. My personal connection to this work is being a child that met her father behind bars for the first time, because my mother was expecting with me when my father went away to prison for crimes that he didn't commit. He was given 2 life sentences plus 21 years for those crimes in Angola, that's Louisiana State Penitentiary here in Louisiana, and he ended up serving 23 and a half years for those crimes. He was released in 2015, but he wasn't exonerated until 2017. So imagine being traumatized from him already being wrongfully convicted, but coming home and he not all the way free. And they had in between that 2-year period, they try to put him back in prison to make him admit to a crime that he was already released for wrongful conviction. So that's my personal experience. And professionally, I'm the co-founder of an organization based in New Orleans called Daughters Beyond Incarceration, where I advocate for children of incarcerated parents through mentorship, policy implementation, advocacy work, and support.
Thank you, Bree. And so viewers, as you can see, we have a group of panelists here who firsthand have experienced parental incarceration, and through their work, through their advocacy, are continuing to advocate for children of incarcerated parents. I want to just take a moment to uplift something that Monet said, and it's a really good transition to the next part of this conversation, which is how critically important it is to ensure that children of incarcerated parents have policymakers who understand their experience, who've lived their experience, and who are actually helping to reshift that narrative. And so while we know that there are researchers like Dr. Muhammad, and we were so lucky and grateful to have her come visit the We Got Us Now actionists during our retreat, we know that she's continuing to actively work to reshift that narrative and to talk about our resiliency. The reality is that research continues, and people's bias continues to perceive children of incarcerated parents in a certain light. We know this to be true. And so I would love to just open up to see if, Alexandra, if you could talk a little bit about how you navigated that stigma, or telling others about your parents' incarceration, and what message in hindsight would you tell your younger self? So Alexandra, if you could kick it off.
Thank you so much. Telling people about my father's incarceration is this weird dance that I used to have to navigate When you tell someone, oh, my dad's incarcerated, you immediately, what I would do is look at their eyes, if their eyes shifted, look at their body language, look at where in their body they were giving off like shocked or like uncomfortable type of feelings, because in that 20 seconds of their reaction, I could see where they were, if they were judging me. But at least I could control, like, okay, you know, this person I'm not going to talk about my dad with, because I see in their body language they're not giving off supportive vibes type of thing. In With my younger self, I struggled because I would have to tell, like, I tell this story of having a boyfriend once in high school. And I remember telling him, like, sometimes you're not going to see me on weekends because I go visit my dad with my grandma. And come to find out, when I had, you know, revealed that secret, he let me know that he really had to go talk to his own mom and get advice on what to do dating this girl with an incarcerated father. And that was just so dehumanizing, because it made me feel like I had like a scarlet letter, or I was just like, because of that one thing, I was this deficit human being. And so that just really reinforces like the shame that we feel from the time we go visit our parents in the prison visiting room, from school, in families. And so I really try to, what I would tell my younger self is to understand that your story is your story, and you have to come to terms with your own feelings about it. And I would tell my younger self not to let others' reaction about your own lived experience essentially just cover your own reaction to it. And you have to sort of validate your own experience instead of waiting for others to validate it, especially if they've never had to gone through it. So that's just something I think about, how I would go back in time and talk to my younger self about how to navigate that type of experience of having a parent incarcerated.
Thank you, Alexandra. And Bree, I want to turn it over to you, because similar to Alexandra, your father was incarcerated for your life. You're now working with young girls who are impacted also by parental incarceration. So when you look back, you know, what was your experience in navigating that stigma, that narrative? And what would you say to your younger self and to your girls?
Navigating this experience was different because I knew people who had parents that would go to jail but not to prison. They'll go in and out. So nobody really understood, at least from, I didn't think people understood. So I didn't open up, I didn't talk about it until now that I'm doing this work. And I think I would tell my younger self to know that you're resilient, because you didn't hear much about resilience 10 and 15 years ago. You're resilient and you still could thrive despite your traumatic experiences by not letting somebody on the outside devalue your existence or your experience because of credentials. Because we live in a world where credentials kind of matter more than experience, and it shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't have to have 5 or 6 degrees in order for my experience to be considered valid. So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Bree. And we know that in thinking about how the personal is political, especially for women of color, and how our advocacy and liberation is tied to our lived experiences, is tied to our identities. Ashley, can you share a little bit more about the turning point in your life when you started using your personal story to advocate for change? You started talking a little bit about the work that you're currently doing and the work that you've done around human resources. But if you could talk a little bit more about, like, when was that turning point when you realized, you know, I have the power and the expertise to actually advocate for change?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it actually happened sort of recently, and it came to me sort of in a creative way. So I think in a lot of ways, I think I've been comfortable with sharing my story. I think along the way, it has been my form of therapy and release, because that's all I knew. And to be quite honest with you all, which I'm sure a lot of us have had this experience, you know, especially in communities of color, nearly all of the men in my family have either been in prison or jail. So it's something that something that I understood, unfortunately, very young, because again, my father has been in federal prison since I was 6 months old. But in terms of advocating for change, I didn't realize the power in my story until again later. So in 2017, I actually participated in a business accelerator course that helped Black millennials in Charlotte with startup business models. So during that time, I actually founded a gifting company called Giftbox Shop. And so my company helped incarcerated individuals stay connected to friends, family, and loved ones through the act of gift giving. And Ebony, as well as, some of you have stated, as far as my actionists have stated before, that, your fathers have never stopped being fathers to you despite being in prison. So the same is true for my father, Orrin Jackson. I wanted to give those behind the wall an affordable and easy way to send highly personalized gifts home to the people that they love. So I wanted to give them the power to be able to provide in such a simple but meaningful way. So the stories that I've heard from my clients have been very humbling and life-changing. Giftbox Shop has allowed me to use my creativity, empathy for just understanding exactly what they're going through, and personal insight to honestly help play a role in reducing recidivism, literally one gift at a time, because we know that, the more incarcerated individuals are connected or engaged with their friends, family, and loved ones, the people that love them, then the chances of them returning back to prison are low. So again, I think it came to me, which I'm blessed because it did come to me in such a creative way to where I could sort of spin the narrative as far as us just, being sad and, just powerless. I think I wanted to put the power back into their hands, even if it was something as simple as being able to send a nice birthday gift home to their child for his or her 16th birthday.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you for sharing how that lived experience influenced your advocacy. And we're so grateful to you and for all that you're doing. Similarly, I want to, have an opportunity to hear from Isabel, because Isabel, there is limited data, as you know, available and national attention on the number of Indigenous people who are currently incarcerated. I read somewhere that the Prison Policy Initiative put out a new release, and they said that Oklahoma, your home state, tops the list as the state with the highest number of Indigenous people incarcerated, followed by Arizona, where Alexandra is from. Can you elaborate a little bit more, Isabel, on how your experience in witnessing the effects of mass incarceration of Indigenous people has influenced your advocacy and your transition into the policy space?
Yeah, so the native data is definitely scarce, but something that I know that we've had for several years is a stat nationwide is that Native women are incarcerated at 6 times the rate of white women, and then Native men are incarcerated at 3 times the rate of white men. And then, like you said, my home state is increasingly and still is incarcerated more Native women than anything. And so I really saw those impacts when I was helping co-develop an organization called the American Indian Criminal Justice Navigation Council, where we went into the prisons with other people who had returned back home, were very much in their community. We equipped them with basic legal jargon of a basic flow of a case, key players, so they could go back and mentor other people, because what we were seeing in Oklahoma is people were taking plea deals, but they didn't understand. They were getting scared into it. So in order to be more active participants in their case, we wanted to go in and equip with our own people back into prisons. And so I just increasingly with that program, we were seeing across the state how many tribal members we had in the prison, and just the complexity around that. The data was increasingly hard to get from DOC because they either wanted to list us as other, or they didn't even want to put in the effort to track down that they were a tribal citizen and what tribe they were from. So we would have to go in and get that data and then give it to the tribes, because we were relying on the tribes to do something about the work, because obviously we can't rely on the state to do it. So we have fully functioning tribes who are doing their own reentry work in Oklahoma. Like my tribe has their own apartment for returning citizens so they can have somewhere to live. They have technical training, jobs, clothing, attorneys, like fully equipped because of the work we were doing. But as I was doing the work, I saw the massive gaps in policy, and I just couldn't stand by and do anything about that. But as we know, policy isn't accessible. It's very much for a small group of people, usually elite, to get into this space. But I was lucky enough to come across an organization, the Next 100, which is a pop-up think tank for the next generation of policy leaders. That equip people coming from their communities with the resources and tools to see the change that we want to see in this world. And so part of my goal at Next 100 is to raise awareness around this Indigenous mass incarceration while centering the children who have ultimately experiencing these impacts the longest. So I'm very hopeful for the future.
Thank you so much, Isabel. And one thing that you talked about, and I think this is a really good time to talk about this here, is you said the policy space is not accessible, right? We know that for a long time, it has been a white male dominated space, especially in academia, right? And we have viewers who are tuning in who many are children of incarcerated parents. And so I want to take some time to talk about how you all, as women of color, as daughters of incarcerated parents, have navigated policy in that research space. I want to be able to share with our viewers some advice and tips on how they can navigate that space if they should choose that this is their lane, that this is their calling. And so, Alexandra, let's start with you. As mentioned, academia has historically and continues to be a white dominated space. You are our research resident for the Actionist program, currently working on your PhD. Could you share with the viewers who may be interested in exploring and developing research, how they can stay true to their voice and do this research focus on the effects of incarceration without feeling like they have to constantly, compensate or like justify their research? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I go back and forth because when I give advice, I say, oh, well, researchers currently in the ivory tower need to have us children of incarcerated parents, us with the direct experience on their research teams. And I think it's important to really shift that and position ourselves as the leaders. Like researchers should be on our research team, right? Because we have those ideas, we have these like projects in our head that we want to implement that are going to come from this place of just love for our community and wanting that freedom for our community. And so I think going into academia, what I wish I would have had when I went in is like this hard copy list of all these like thoughts and ideas and ways that I think that research should be done. Because I think it's important to own that. Especially if we are subject matter experts, we're coming to the table as subject matter experts. And I think with academia, your ideas and your thoughts are so important. I've been on grants where people are like, oh, I love your research, let me put you on this grant. And then that grant never gets funded. So that idea gets put away and I don't even know where, And so I think there's a way then for us as directly impacted people to take the power of our own thoughts and our own ideas. And so, for example, what I'm really trying to challenge myself to do is I have a lot of grants that didn't get funded. But how can I then take those and give them to communities or as a way to collaborate with communities to say, hey, developing despite distance, here's this grant I think is really good. I want to give it to you. Or, DBI, or like, here are these grants that I think I could help polish and you could use it for the benefit of just getting money to fund your organization and compensate, the youth in your organizations. And so, yeah, those are my thoughts. Just have your own hard copy of your thoughts and your ideas and your projects. And then own those and find ways to see how you can be the leader of your own work.
Thank you, Alexandra. Monet, I want to transition to you. You have experience in the advocacy world, having worked at Global Citizen, as you mentioned, and recently you transitioned to the work in working for New York City government. I know just from my own experience, having worked in New York City government, it is fast paced, it is intense, and it can be a lot. And so I would love to hear from you. How have you navigated the politics while staying true to your voice? And what advice would you give to children of incarcerated parents who want to enter city government?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I really appreciate that question. And it's very loaded, especially coming from a place where I was, advocating from a nonprofit space, advocating on behalf of people to pressure policymakers for change. And now I'm coming from a side where I'm actually working like for the man, so quote unquote, like trying to push the mayor's agenda forward. But I feel like I've never been able to actually see the outcome of certain policy initiatives until I came to this side. So I think there's a lot of power in being able to help implement, because you get to shape how those policies look on the ground, right? So if the mayor's initiative is around creating more programs for youth in order to give them after school resources, we can actually shape how that looks. So instead of, for instance, the NYPD controlling that program, it can be sheltered at a different nonprofit. It can be sheltered at city agencies who understand what those youth need. So I think being able to be in this seat actually gets me to think a little bit more critically about how to implement policies that will help uplift our communities. So some words of advice, I feel like a lot of times, as the other panelists mentioned, there's a lot of stigmas around children of incarcerated parents, and a lot of the statistics show that we won't have successful outcomes. But I just feel like those things are not true, and we just have to keep advocating and fighting to not let those stigmas hold us hostage. You can reach out to other people to provide support. I feel like that's one thing in my office now. I actually found allies, found senior analysts who are able to really think critically about what needs to get done, and also offer more information in areas that I don't know about. I know someone mentioned earlier that sometimes these spaces, they're predominantly white, they're predominantly elite, the information and the knowledge we kind of just don't have the access to. So just be proactive about learning, about reaching out, about getting the support, because those are the things that are actually going to push the needle forward, and those are the things that are going to help us be in the space to create those changes.
Thank you so much, Monet. And going, off of this notion of like the difference of then now being on this side of the table and actually having the influence of writing what's in the policy, I want to give an opportunity for Bree to speak, because Bree just recently helped champion a new bill in LA, Louisiana. And so, Bree, I would love for you to talk about what the bill is and also the work that went in behind the scenes to pass that bill.
It was a lot of work, I'm gonna say that. So the bill, I want to uplift our partners, because we couldn't have done it without them. Navigate NOLA is an organization based here in New Orleans that focuses on social emotional learning with our girls. We Got Us Now, Vote NOLA, my dad, Robert Jones, and Southern Poverty Law Center. We couldn't have done it without those guys. So the bill is HB 729 to establish a council for all children of incarcerated parents across Louisiana. The bill was passed about 2 weeks ago, to establish a council and to analyze, investigate, and create a reform for all children of incarcerated parents and their caregivers to have a voice. The governor's office took a really good interest in our bill, so our bill will be housed inside the governor's office. And I have some exciting news that I just found out late last night, that they want to do a signing of our bill today. So I'm gonna be heading up to the Capitol in about 2 hours to go do the signing of the bill with some of our girls. But I think it's really important because there's no data in Louisiana that counts children of incarcerated parents. I mean, there's no data, so we want to create that data. So a part of that council is to create the data and also create a fund for children of incarcerated parents because we're often forgotten, but nobody ever talks about how resilient we are. So I always make sure before I start speaking, you say something positive first, not to leave a bad taste in people's mouth because they like to filter your story. So we start this organization and this bill because too many people are telling our stories and they haven't been directly impacted, or they're having too many conversations without children of incarcerated parents. Like, how could you have a conversation about a child without a child? It's not right. So that's why I'm excited to be an actionist for We Got Us Now as well, because their organization is led by and built by children of incarcerated parents. Our focus was mainly girls with incarcerated fathers because of my experience and my partner's experience. But we realized that a lot of our girls, they had a lot of girls in the city that's growing up fatherless, whether the father's incarcerated, previously incarcerated, if he'd been released, or if he's just absent, or if he was incarcerated before and now he's deceased. So our organization is DBI, and the D is for deceased, B is for been released, and the I is still incarcerated. And that was just a creative way I thought about that in the tub one night when I was trying to figure out how to distinguish our girls into tiers, because our organization grew from, we've been around for 2 years now, and the organization grew from 2 mentees to now over 70 plus girls registered in the organization that's been speaking on panels across the country about how mass incarceration impacts families, and not only the families, but the community. When a person has been connected to the community and, it hurts everyone. So that's the bill that we just championed, and I'm excited. I'm really excited about that, and we have another bill we've been working on to eliminate all communication fees across the board in Louisiana. That one hasn't been passed yet, but I feel really good about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bree. I don't know if you had a chance to see, but all the other panelists were sending you positive vibes, and I'm sure the viewers are as well. Thank you so much for your fight and all the work that you continue to do. I can't believe it, y'all, but it's almost 10:40. Like, this time just flew by. And so before I talk about We Got Us Now policy demands, just quickly, I would love to give an opportunity for a few of you to talk about any policy recommendations or laws that, if put in place, so similar to the bill that Bree talked about, would help to lessen the emotional and financial challenges of children of incarcerated parents. And so, Ashley, your father is 51 years old, and I know that you and I have talked about this in the past. There have been, I believe, 13 deaths related to COVID-19 at the federal prison where he is currently serving his time. What policy recommendation law would lessen the anxiety that you've been feeling?
Yes, thank you, Jasmine. So I know that you're going to get into our demands in our open letter, but I do want to stress the urgency of the We Got Us Now first demand and policy recommendation, which is written in our open letter, for immediate grant of clemency for the most vulnerable population of COVID-19. Including our elderly parents and those with pre-existing health conditions who pose no public safety issue, and they do have loving and supportive families desperately awaiting their safe return home. We know that the annual cost of incarceration, generally estimated at about $30,000 per person, can easily double for our elderly loved ones as they require more health resources as they age. And also upon release, we demand that our most vulnerable population in prison do not encounter any barriers, reentry barriers once they're home. So, our parents and our loved ones are not just numbers tied to a broken criminal justice system. They belong to us, and we honor, love, and respect them.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for uplifting that. Isabel, from your perspective, your lens, any policy recommendation or law right now that you believe would further support, and help lessen the emotional and financial challenges?
Yeah, there's actually a law that me and Ebony are on a committee for right now. It's a federal bill. It's called the Parent Alternative Sentencing. It's a model that's already been used in Washington State, and some other states have since implemented it. But it's around finding alternatives to incarceration for the parents, so they're not even going into the prison system, while also equipping them with tools, community resources, to stay home with their children. Of course, I think if we can not go the prison route, that reduces a lot of the traumatic experiences that we face in the first place. But of course, there's many other social, mental health that we need to fix. And if I had more time, I would love to discuss that. But I have a report coming out around all of my policy recommendations that you can find at the next100.org.
Thank you so much, Isabel. And Monet, I will give you the last minute to talk about any policy recommendations or laws from your perspective that you really think will help to support children of incarcerated parents.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like right now a lot of people are looking into redistribution models. There's a lot of policies around taking the funds away from mass incarceration and pumping that back into communities. One way that I know it's been done, or some research has shown it's been done, just because my research was around bail and pretrial reform. I think we spend over like $2 billion on pretrial detention. So taking those funds away from those types of forms of incarceration and pumping it into communities, such as programs for alternatives to incarceration that the other panelists mentioned, could help prevent so many people from entering the system from the beginning. So you lessen the trauma, you lessen the residual impacts. And then I feel like because those models have shown that they work in terms of the pretrial space, we can definitely do something like this for the whole prison system in general. This would be something that would touch my father, who's currently incarcerated in federal prison, as well as so many other federal prison inmates, state prison inmates, and their families, to help revitalize the communities and prevent people from getting into the systems of incarceration from the beginning. So I know that's a very broad answer, but it's shown that those types of redistribution models are the only way to get us away from this current system that exists right now.
Thank you so much, Monet. And I know that there are some questions, but just quickly, it's so critically important that our viewers know that We Got Us Now, we are building a community, a movement of children of incarcerated parents, but we too are the content experts. We have 4 policy demands that we are advocating for. Ashley touched on the first one, immediate clemency for our elderly and sick parents who have predisposed conditions. We are asking that they are granted clemency. A second demand is focused on free communications. We know that these telecom companies continue to profit off of our pain. Even during these times, they have said they've been given some free phone calls, but it's very limited. And so we want to demand that there are free phone calls, emails, used up to the tablet. Then there's our third demand that's focused on the notification system. I can't tell you enough how many young people have been just struggling to get updated information about the conditions at their parents' prisons. And it should not be their responsibility to have to search through multiple different websites to find this information. We've also heard of young people right before, it got really to this point in March, where families were traveling hours to the prisons and then they were told then, sorry, we're no longer doing in-person visits. And so we need a notification system. We are demanding a notification system that will provide up-to-date real updates in real time so that children of incarcerated parents are informed about what's happening. And then lastly, safe and sanitary measures. This continues to be a priority for us, especially as we know there are a growing number of women who are incarcerated in this country. And we know that hygiene products are expensive. And so we want to make sure that our parents have access to safe and sanitary measures. So those are the 4 We Got Us Now demands. And to all the viewers, we really encourage you to go search our website, wegotusnow.org, to learn more about our demands. And also, please consider signing our petition. You can go to www.change.org/protect-our-parents. Also, just want to remind you, you saw Ebony, our fearless leader, with her We Got Us Now t-shirt. If you're interested in copying some merch, please visit our website as well. We have a merch shop, and all those proceeds will allow us to continue to do this important work. To all of the panelists, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I'm so grateful to have shared this space with all of you. Thank you for all the work that you're doing and continuing to do. And with that, thank you so very much. I am now going to send it over to Sydney.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, like I just gathered so much information. I'm so excited to start doing this work, but we do have one specific question that we want to ask. It can be answered by whoever decides that they want to answer. So Jasmine, if you want to pass it to somebody when I ask it, do your thing. So as you are all women of color who come from different ethnicities and backgrounds, how would you say that how do you build an intersectional movement for policy change? So all of you all come from different backgrounds, but you all have all came together as one. So how did you all create that platform as all women of color and to create policy change? Thank you.
Wow, that's such an important and critical question. Laura wants to jump in. Isabel, I saw you head nod first. Do you want to, or Alexandra, whoever?
Yeah, I'll jump in. That's something that's been on my mind increasingly. As I talk about a lot about the Native community, I feel so interwoven with the Black community just because of our overlaying history. And so when I'm building my policy platform, I want to increase the visibility in that intersectionality because we all are having these same shared experiences and traumas and generational traumas that I just feel like when we come together, we're that much stronger.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that too. I feel like we are so much stronger when we come together, and I feel like forgetting one group makes us all worse off. So we definitely have to be intentional from the outset to be inclusive about so many things. I've heard so many things recently with what's going on with police brutality and the focus mostly being on men of color and Black men specifically, which is a huge issue, but we then miss a lot of the girls and the women who have been gone missing for so many years. So we definitely have to be intentional about those things.
And I think just to sort of add on to that conversation, in my dissertation, I was intentional about centering Black and brown girls who have experienced familial incarceration and thinking about to make sure that I'm not only including cisgender girls in my dissertation, but also those who identify as transgender and also non-binary folks too, because, you know, to think about, yes, this experience as a brown Latina woman is different from someone who may identify as Indigenous or Black. And also too, if you identify as queer and you have those, you represent those identities, that may be position you to experience the world in a different way, not to your own fault, but just how the world treats us. And so I think like for girls, for Black, brown, Indigenous girls, oftentimes I think about policing, like we're policed in our schools and in our communities and when we go visit our loved ones. And so it's important that policy reflects that we want to be liberated in all those areas. And so to do that, our collective voice has to be at the table, so to speak.
Our liberation is intersectional, it has to be. So Cindy, with that, thank you so much. Thank you all again.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I will now be bringing back Ebony Underwood, the founder and CEO of We Got Us Now, and she will now be introducing to you the next policy panel. Thank you.
Hi, that was such a great panel. Wow, I'm so proud of the actionists and the members of our community. You guys are wonderful. doing incredible work all across the country. Thank you so much. Yeah, that panel was phenomenal. The policy, the power of we as policymakers. We are doing it. So our next panel is called Healing Through Wellness and Artistic Expression. It's a 2-part conversation that includes Miko Underwood and Nahid Ibrahimi. I have to say this, the work of We Got Us Now is not only about building community, but as I shared earlier, it's really about creating these safe and inclusive spaces and understanding that there was trauma in this experience. And because of that trauma, my thoughts and my beliefs are that I can never ask anyone to be a part of this work because of how traumatizing and how impacted we all are without really doing some self-reflection and some self-healing. And for me personally, the thing that saved my life was music and art. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I worked in the music and entertainment business. I come from a family of artists, and I really just truly believe in the arts as a way of being able to help support the work that we do. So in order for us to actually heal in this experience, because it's a daily healing process, I believe that it must start from the moment of understanding, recognizing that in order for us to give of ourselves and to do any sort of advocacy, we must heal ourselves first. And self-care is essential to the work that we do. And so this one-on-one conversation that you're about to hear with these 2 incredible women will highlight the importance of healing through the expression of art and design and wellness. Let me see if they are ready. I don't see Miko. All right. So in the meantime, we're waiting for one of our other panelists to join. And once she does, I think that we'll be able to start. But as I was sharing, in the meantime, oh, I don't see her. I don't see you. All right. I think Miko is here. I just don't see you. Please bring her in, you all. All right. All right. I'm going to hand it off to Miko and Nahid. You guys take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ebony, for that introduction. Good morning, Miko. I can't hear you.
Okay, I think I got it. I'm here. Good morning.
Made it. Good morning. How are you?
Good.
I'm going to do a quick little intro, and then I want to jump into this conversation. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Nahid Ibrahimi. I'm based from Oakland, California. And actually, before I jump into anything, I want to give a quick shout out to my little brother who just finished his first year at Howard. So shout out to all of y'all who have been figuring out life during this pandemic as college students. My father was incarcerated when my mother was pregnant with me, and luckily for us, he was released before my 2nd birthday. And so that helps to bring me into this conversation, and it informs me and my family's experience. And of course, we know that the experience of a mother when she's pregnant can definitely have a lasting impact on children. In addition to that, my history in my professional world is rooted in healing-centered youth organizing. I've been organizing for over 2 decades now, and specifically started organizing around against the school to prison pipeline that exists here in California. But my work has really been focused on youth development and healing-centered youth organizing for the last couple of decades. Miko, I really am excited to have this conversation with you as we prepare to really engage in this conversation around how healing and wellness practices and arts and expression come together to be able to move this conversation forward, to make sure that as we're in this movement that we're not burning out and we're not kind of bringing a lot of the trauma along with us as we create this new world. It will be great to hear from you, just if you want to share a little bit about who you are, how you come to this community, how you're connected to this community, and also how you, like, what role you play in this world as a creative and a healer.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for the work that you do, Nahi. I appreciate you so much. And thank you to Dr. Muhammad, and thank you to Ebony. And so this has been my life for 32 years, for what would be 32 years of my father being incarcerated. He's been incarcerated most of my life, all of my son's life. And for years, my space of expression has always been art. I'm an artist, first and foremost. I went to school for medicine. I thought I was going to become a doctor. Didn't go to school for art, but I always really excelled in arts and sciences. And but my dad always knew that I would be a designer. And so, because I was always making my own stuff and creating things. And he also taught me about meditation. He taught me about eating certain foods and how they're important for your body. My mother taught us about the power of spirituality, the power of that there's always God is in the midst of everything. And so I didn't really get it until much later in my life. Like, there were things that we had done intuitively as far as practice in my home with my mom. We had done, we grew up Catholic, so we had a lot of Catholic statues and things in our house. But it didn't really hit me until I moved out of my house and I started to live my life. And when I had gone into design work, that had been the space of just being able to really run away from my family, because I was often asked to travel around the world, which I loved, which to me connected with my dad because he would travel a lot. So to me, it was a real strong connection with me of like being with my dad in that way. But it was also a way for me to not deal with the trauma of being a child of an incarcerated parent at the time when I was traveling. And so it was tough. And it wasn't until my sister Ebony decided to share a story that kind of like put us on blast. And I was just like, oh no. She's gonna tell everybody. Because we lived for so long with the stigma and shame. And it wasn't until the work that she had done that we realized that there was a huge population. I had not shared it with anyone. People in the fashion industry, whenever they asked me about my dad, and because I would talk about him all the time because he's such a huge inspiration in my life. I speak to him. Before COVID, I would speak to him every day, and he would advise me on how to move. And being an entrepreneur and an artist is really important to me. And so they knew that my dad was a big part of my life. So they'd ask me, and every time they'd ask me, I'd be like, oh, he's in Pennsylvania, or he lives here, or I'm going to take the day to go visit my dad. And no one thought about it because it was always a journey. It's like, I need to take the day because it's a long drive. Meanwhile, going to see a prison. Yeah. And so that's been a lifetime, and so Ebony put us on blast. And, and that really informed how I needed to show up. And there were personal things that happened to me that really moved me stronger into meditation.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. One thing that comes up for me, and this is something that kind of is ingrained in all of the work that I do, and I've had to make this shift because, as you step into the world of social justice and the world of trying to create systematic change, it can be really daunting. Let alone, first and foremost, you're already experiencing it. I think we heard earlier, you're opening your eyes alone is an act of rebellion. Just being a Black woman, being a woman of color, being someone who has lived in poverty or comes from poverty, all of those things, all of the identities that we bring to the table, we know is already showing up. So anything that we do is an act of resilience. And so I think one thing that comes up for me is through our history, we have to highlight how our communities have already been resilient, right? We've already found ways to lean into our joy. We found ways, even in the most traumatic moments and the most daunting experiences, we've been able to persevere and not just survive, but really thrive in a lot of ways. And so it'd be helpful to hear from you as you talk about being an artist and being in a space where you've been able to express your creativity and also express, and bring to the table all of the identities of who you are. What role does that play in creating like lasting change in our society?
Thank you for that question. So the way that I would express it is basically, this is how it started for me. When Ebony decided to start We Got Us Now, she needed my assistance. I had already started a company called Building 357, which does graphic design, web design, and all type of stuff that I started independently for myself back in 2007 to just be able to work independently of other corporations and not be inside someone's incorporation. So that was the entrepreneurial spirit that my dad instilled in us, that I would own my own. And that was my first role of self-empowerment, was that I need to own my own. And so I had started that in 2007. And so I was doing a lot of design and event production stuff with her, in partnership with her. And in that time, I had walked away from the fashion industry because I didn't feel like I was being seen or recognized for my work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I started to question, is it important work? Is this important work to do? But there was something in me that had always drawn me to come back to it, and it was denim. And I didn't understand why there was this huge connection to denim. And because it'd been my entire life. Since I was a kid, I would be in the vintage stores buying old denim, buying old like army surplus stuff, and deconstructing it and re-engineering and dyeing it and doing all kinds of stuff to it. And people knew me for having my own specific, unique style. And so, and Ebony was always in all my stuff. So, I was her stylist. I was her first stylist. So, so when I started to learn the history of denim, really get into it, because I'd taken a break out of the industry, it forced me to connect to like, what is the history of denim? And what I found was that indigo had been connected to the slave trade, and it was actually the hidden commodity of the slave trade. It's indigo, and then rice, and cotton came much later. And then I said, oh shoot,
wow.
What? And when I started to really look at how indigo had been this global resource that had brought the Indians from India to the Caribbean, had brought Africans throughout the Caribbean and through Americas, and also the Black indigenous people here in America. Don't forget, when we talk about Native American, there were Black indigenous Americans here that worked together and were enslaved together with enslaved African people. And so, when these colonists decided to forcibly migrate these people to all these places, they selected people who had a skill set in cultivating indigo.
Yeah.
And I saw my personal history all through that. And that's when I knew, I was like, oh my gosh. And what indigo represents it wasn't just that it was a resource, it was as a commodity. It was gold at the time. It was a currency.
Yeah.
But for African people and for Indian people, it was a spiritual, it had very spiritual connotations to it. The fabric dyed indigo. What the saying is that whatever you put on your body is clothing your soul. The clothing that you put on your body is covering your soul. And so indigo had very like spiritual, and so I was like, okay, what is this all about? And I had to really go deep, and I started to trace all of that into it. And it brought me to how connected, what sustainability looks like And because I had always been a proponent of sustainability in the denim industry, working as a denim designer now for 18 years, I knew at that point that I really needed to launch my own brand, and it had to pay homage to these indigenous people. You know, the untold story and the history of the enslaved Africans and the Black indigenous Americans on this land, and their contribution to the fashion industry as a whole, not just denim, but but it starts with denim. You know, denim was considered, it wasn't called denim, it wasn't called jeans, it was called Negro cloth. First and foremost, it was unfit for anyone else to wear. And so in that, I recognized, in me being a sustainable designer, I had to, first and foremost, sustainability wasn't about what I was designing. It was about having authenticity fully. And so for me, it was about what I put in my body, what I put on my body, how I show up in my community. And so I started to tie all of that together, and the work that I was doing, We Got Us Now. So my signature piece in my collection, which is my coverall, that particular piece, a portion of the proceeds goes back to We Got Us Now to support the work. And obviously, I'm very active in the work, and outside of just the clothing, but it was really important that I would have the integrity in the work that I did and how I showed up in the community. And then for myself, how did I show up for myself? So with that, it was really about getting closer to meditation. And so I made time for meditation. And meditation, first and foremost, for me, was my art. Because I believe that meditation is whatever you put your focus into. It's a focused practice. It's not just like, sitting and meditate. We graduate to that moment. But I believe, to me, the way that meditation showed up for me was just by sitting and writing and painting, because all of my paintings have writing in it. And so it was painting, writing, and then my design. And so that's how I really got in and fell in love with meditation.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh my God. Well, first of all, the comments are going off the hook right now.
Oh, shoot, really?
Look at them the same way again. Thank you so much for that. And also just giving that historical context is so helpful, because it does, even if we don't know, even if you don't know, you know what I mean?
No, you feel it. And it's funny because jeans are a piece of apparel that's seen around the world. And I just want to let everyone know that actually tomorrow I'm launching the Denim Collective, and it's going to be in a historical archive of the history of denim, starting with our untold legacy. And so you'll find it on Instagram at the DNM Collective, and the website as well.
Great. We'll make sure to share all those links in the chat box after. But thank you so much for that context. I'm curious to hear, Miko, how your role, so you are a brilliant creative person, from the way that it shows up in your design through apparel, in your visual arts, in your words, and of course also through your wellness practices. I'm curious to hear, as we come into this world, I don't know if for folks who are watching who may have had this experience, but there has been historically a understanding that in the social justice world, you are going to come in and you're going to work as hard as you possibly can. You're going to push yourself to the limits, and eventually, especially for youth organizers, you're going to burn out and then just like disappear and go get a regular job, right? For you, the way that you approach your work is about sustaining yourself. So can you tell us a little bit about how you approach your wellness practices, and also how your work is focused around creating accessibility to your wellness practices? Because a lot of times in communities, especially in communities of color, there can be stigma around meditation, even like, I don't got time for all that, or like, I don't like, just folks that don't have necessarily a connection or a mental connection, but we always may have that spiritual connection to practices that are actually going to help us be sustainable and help build our movement to be sustainable, especially as we think about the actionists that we've been working with We Got Us Now.
So that's a great question. Honestly, I can say that what I can say about us as people in this work, especially as Brown and Black people, we inherently have this connection. It's really just about tapping in to what we already, our own resource, our own light. And I recognize that my role on this planet is to be a conduit. And my family has been, which I feel like we all have this. It's just really a practice and a training. But what I grew up seeing in my family is people who can hear, see, feel certain vibrations. But I believe that, and I see it a lot in this generation, that a lot of people are very attuned to it. What's happened is a lot of us have been very medicated. Some of us need it, but you know, there's been like ways we have like self-medicated ourselves through food, through sugar, through vices, alcohol, drugs. But you know, because the environment can really impact us in a very strong way. And so my role into it, as I said, is just really to be a bridge, because I can hear and see what is ailing us. And also because of my experience, our wound is our greatest gift to healing ourselves and to healing others. Our wound is our greatest gift to healing ourselves and helping others. And when I began to first and foremost work on my own wound, and it took a lot of writing, personal letters to my child.
How to work on our wounds, Miko, because we out here, we need it.
Writing personal letters to myself, to my childhood self. You know, during I can say, you know, and I thought that I had done a lot of work, but I could say even during this quarantine, I cried a lot, like the little girl that I was, saying, I miss my daddy, and allowing myself to say, I miss my daddy, and giving, I think specifically, you know, as Black people, but specifically as Black women, we hold on to a lot, and we are expected to just move forward, you know, in a way that is like we're invincible, and we don't often have spaces to lean into. And so it was really important to me, and obviously Ebony, when she started We Got Us Now, for us to create space for each other, just to share our stories. At the time when she had started it, I wasn't doing the work in the way that I'm doing this work now. This really was an evolution in my process. But when I recognized that I was touching people and God was using me in a special way, that I had to continue to do this work and show up any way that I can. And so today I do this work with my partner, and who was also, you know, had his own wounds that he had to go through, and recognizes who he is as a white man in this country, is not shy to talk about any of this stuff, studied Africana studies, and lived with a lot of, you know, like he's the real deal. And so, you know, and to me, I don't think God could have set me up with a better person, because the way we are showing up in this moment, just as Black people, and it's a very real, very truth moment. And we need to have people in our lives that are willing to talk the talk and walk the walk. And so when I talk about spirituality and why I say it's accessible for me, that the tools that I can share was that, first and foremost, I had to eat differently. I recognize that by, you know, I'm vegan, and I'm not saying that everyone needs to be vegan. But what I found was that I began to hear my organs speaking to me, rather than listening to my head. When I ate other foods, my head was very cloudy. And so it's not that our head speaks to our organs, but our organs speak to our head. And so it gave me space in my body that I could hear myself. And then I could really feel my spirit. I could hear it working through me. And so, you know, introducing more vegetables into my body. So if you are a person that continues to eat meat or whatever, just make sure you make time for plant-based, meaning you can have a week or a couple days where you fast, or maybe even, you know, the way that I started was intermittent fasting. All of that stuff attributed to the increasing my spirituality and my connection to myself, because I was able to feel and hear what was going on. So when my wounds came up, they came up strong. And I was like, oh God, what is this? And the ailments in our body are a reflection of our emotional and our spiritual well-being. So whenever you see someone that's in dis-ease, it's because they have discomfort in their body. It's not dis-ease of the body. It is disease of the spirit and then the emotion. It may be some childhood root trauma. It may be something that happened later in their life, but it's something that is triggering something that needs to be dealt with in the spiritual and the emotional realm. It's all connected. And when I saw that our body is its own ecosystem, its own earth, that was my first space of sustainability that I needed to work on before I showed up in all the other spaces.
Yeah, think that that's so helpful, Miko. And this last question, I may be asking for myself selfishly or for everyone else. I'm hearing that it's so necessary to be intentional about everything that we do. And even just a point that Jasmine raised in the last panel, everyone has a role in this movement, whether you're an artist, whether you're a researcher, whether you're a teacher, you have a role in supporting children of incarcerated parents and also supporting yourself and ensuring that you can show up as full as you possibly can. A question that I have for you that may be personally for me, it may not be, but what is it that we can do? Like, how can we start to listen to ourselves before we start to step into these different practices of considering to take better care of our spirits and of our bodies?
That's a great question. I would say just allow yourself to feel. Don't try to name it. Don't try to name it. Don't try to, I think I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling, whatever it is, allow it to come up. Allow yourself to feel whatever it is that is coming up in you that feels uncomfortable. Sometimes you wake up just feeling agitated, and you don't even know why you're agitated. And it's just just give space for those feelings because your body is trying to speak to you. Your spirit is trying to speak to you. And it may be, what I found a lot of times in life, I might be feeling it just didn't feel good, just waking up, just not feeling good. And I would go to work and everything, not feeling good. And then later on in the day, you find out somebody in your family, something happened. We're connected. Or it may be a world issue. And you're like, damn, maybe that's why we're connected. To think that we are disconnected from all the things that are happening in this environment and our global environment is ridiculous. We're connected. We feel all of it. And we have to also understand that we are impacted by all of this technology as well. So it's important to take moments to disconnect. Get into nature. Nature is the best way. If you can get into the woods, get into nature, get into the water, whatever it is that calms you and brings you peace, just to get to yourself. I think that's the best way. And allow, especially when feelings come up and you're feeling like, just take a walk, go into nature. That'll give you some space and some clarity. Move your body.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to hand it back over. Ebony, go ahead and take it. This is what happens when they bring the wellness people. We're like, time is fluid.
Yes.
That's right.
Oh, okay. So I just want to say, Miko, Naheed, just so happy to be here with both of you all, because I feel like this piece was so important. This piece, Miko is my sister. So I grew up with her, my only sister. And so because we work so closely together, we grow up so closely, we're 2 years apart, we've grown up so closely together. Just me watching and observing her and seeing her transformation into the fullness of herself has just been, not only transformative for her, but for me too, just to see her growth and her evolution. And I'm just so happy that you were a part of this and you brought that artistic piece to this conversation. Yeah. And then Naheed, you already know, your ability to be able to understand the importance of self-care, because you've been in the work for so long, just speaks to just me wanting to make sure that element is always, and Naheed is my people. She's part of our plan. She's part of the We Got Us Now team. So she understands wholeheartedly how important this piece of wellness and self-care is to this work, not only because of her personal experience, but also because of the work that we intend to do. So I applaud you all and thank you both for being here today.
Thank you,
Thank you, Miko. I appreciate the conversation so much. I appreciate you.
so much.
Have
All
a
right.
great day.
Good
I'll talk to you
You
later.
too. Thank you.
All right. All right, so I guess we're going to get into the next panel. It's actually going to be a discussion amongst myself and two powerhouses in this experience of mass incarceration. Some two people that have been doing this work and have been actively doing this work for a really long time. Really excited about this conversation. It is with Mr. Roach Brown, and it is with Miss Nkechi Taifa. And where is Nkechi? Is she here? I don't see you, Nkechi. You gotta unmute yourself and show yourself. But just so, oh, there you go. Hi.
Good morning. I was mesmerized by Miko.
And Mr. Brown, I see you. Mr. Brown, I see you. Hi. You have to unmute yourself. Let me unmute you. There you go. There you go. I see you. I see you. Hi.
All right.
You see me?
No, but I can hear you.
Okay, okay.
She's trying to get the picture up.
You want to get the picture up?
Go ahead. I can hear you. She's trying to get the picture up so I can see you and Nkechi.
Okay, okay, no problem.
But I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. So this conversation is all about mass incarceration through the generations. And the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is because I wanted to give some historical context to how we got here, right? You know, for We Got Us Now, of course, it stems from my personal story, but as I think about Black people in America, and I think about, you know, how Miko just explained, you know, in the last panel about the indigo that was the gold and that was the commodity that was used, you know, many moons before we were even on this planet, and how our people were victimized in that process, and how we have this unconsciousness of knowing about there is something deeper inside and there is some wrongs that need to be righted. And you too were really, really important in this conversation, Mr. Brown, because you, as someone who is a returning citizen and has been doing this work for the last 50 years.
That's right.
And then Nkechi, you as not only an attorney, but a policy analyst and someone that has been doing this work for 40 years as a Black lawyer in a really Black centric way. And so I don't really want to ask a lot of questions. I want us to have a conversation because we have limited time. This panel ends at 11:45. So I just want to jump right into it and give you all an opportunity to talk about how did we get here? And Nkechi, please talk to us about how did we get here?
Okay, I'm thrilled to be able to discuss this, and thank you for this very pertinent several days of conversation. It didn't just drop from the sky, okay? After the end of the enslavement era, there was like an unbroken chain. We had sharecropping, we had chain gangs, we had convict leasing, we had the Jim Crow system, we had lynchings, we had redlining, we had mass incarceration. I mean, it was like an unbroken chain. We had the 13th Amendment, which says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist except as punishment for a crime. Again, an unbroken chain. We had the Crime Bill of 1994, which had the largest expansion of the federal death penalty in modern times. It had the federal three strikes provision. They had the trying of 13-year-olds as adults. It had the evisceration of the exclusionary rule and the gutting of habeas corpus, and more money to states to build more and more prisons to lock up more and more people and for longer periods of time. Mandatory minimum sentences were entrenched, and the war on drugs became actually a war on Black people. And unbroken chain.
Wow. Woo. So it wasn't just the drug war.
No,
it was so many other things prior to that. It was so many other things prior to that. And so, Mr. Brown,
Mm-hmm.
you as a returning citizen didn't experience what is considered mass incarceration, because that was prior. I mean, that was before your
Yes, yes.
that was after your incarceration. But
Mm-hmm.
with the historical context that Nkechi just gave, I would have to say maybe it is truly part of mass incarceration. I mean, you give us some context. Tell us who you are and tell us, how did you get into this space?
Well, my name is Roach Brown. I was sent to prison and had a life sentence at 20 years old. And first, I want to thank you, Ebony, and all the other panelists and Howard University and the folk in making this possible. Because I met my father. I was 8 years old in 1952. And that's the first time I saw my father was in prison. And we didn't have all this kind of participation and enjoy. Folk talking about incarceration of our parents. I grew up in segregation, and as what Nkechi said, this segregation continued. One of the things that we see right now with the protests happening in the street, I did over 30 years on installment plan. Went in, come out, went in and come out, and it took me a while to learn my lesson, but it wasn't about learning my lesson. I didn't have the opportunities to advance myself legitimately or legally, because the minute you got that stigma, that you are returning citizens, you are an outcast for the rest of your life from society. And when you do get a job, it's one of the menial, marginal kind of jobs that you can't support yourself with. So we've been dealing with, like I said, I got a presidential commentation from President Ford. I thought I got it from Abraham Lincoln. That's how long ago it's been.
What year was that? What year was that?
Oh, that was 1892. I'm sorry.
No, seriously, no, I really want to give historical context to this. So please.
I was in 75, and he let me out because we started a group called the Inner Voices, and we were allowed out of prison over 500 times and performed plays that we wrote all over the city and around the country. In fact, we came to the Apollo and did 2 shows at the Apollo Theater with Richard Pryor from prison and returned to prison. On our radio show, Crossroads, you've been on a guest a couple of times. Kid Nkechi is our co-host. And what we've been dealing with this issue a few months ago when you came out here about kids of incarcerated parents. I was 52 years ago. I went in to see my father. And it hurt me to the point where I had 2 sons. And because I didn't have a father in my life, I didn't know what to do to be a father. So when I came out, me and my sons, we talked and we are estranged. But that whole 15 to 20 years that was taken, you cannot make up. And that affects and damages your relationship or trying to reconnect. And I never had a father, and I saw my father in prison, and my sons came to see me in prison. So I thought it was okay, it was cool. I didn't understand the ramifications, the economics of it, the sociology of it. I mean, it just really devastated me and my family. So we've been talking about criminal justice issues. And one of the things I want to say that all our mothers, mothers who had kids who were still out here, we got to have some kind of mandatory thing, like they taken to the streets for the protests about criminal justice reform and police brutality and defund the police. We need to defund the prisons. We need to defund corrections. We need to defund the courts to make sure, because they all a part of this, and this go hand in hand of locking us up. And we've been pushing a thing of no woman who got over 7 years, got a kid under 7 years old, should be incarcerated unless it's a very violent, heinous crime. But all mamas should be released to the kids. They got all this technology. They can put mamas on house arrest. Dad is the same way. If you've been in over 2 decades, I don't care what it is. That's 2 decades, and you can't get back what you lost. And how can you reconnect with your family after 20 years and tell a guy who's 60 years old to get a job? He never had a job. How in the hell are he gonna get one? What are he gonna do?
Mr. Brown, woo! Every time I talk to you, you are such a powerhouse in this discussion and are necessary pillar that we must always honor in this work. And I just want to tell you, I am honored to be in conversation with you. And I am honored that you continue to still do this work for our people. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, you talked about, you talked about the importance of fatherhood. And this Father's Day, We Got Us Now is actually hosting a Father's Day conversation on our YouTube channel about honoring the unbreakable bonds that are formed when a parent is incarcerated with a child. And we have 4 men that will talk about this. But I want to go back over to Nkechi, because Nkechi, I know that you have mentioned that the word may not be defund, that there is an actual word that we need to think about in this work. It may not be defund, and I want you to speak on that, Nkechi.
Well, I've been promoting the term divest. We need to divest from the bad policies and programs that are part of policing. We need to invest in programs and policies that will uplift. It just harkens me back to, I mean, this is like an intergenerational discussion, but back in the day during the anti-apartheid struggles of which I was a part of, what was very, very, very successful was a divestment campaign from companies doing business in South Africa. And it got almost universal support, not necessarily from the corporations, but in terms of the community and even the politicians and policymakers and the like. And it did, in fact, make make a difference. And I think that, terminology is key and it's an important, and I will never be the first one to say that we don't need to be, we definitely need to be out there in the streets. That's the only way in which change actually happens. But I think we need to look at divest and look at what, all of that means. But I want to go to back to Roach for one moment, if I can, because when I look at him and when I listen to him, when I co-host with him on the radio, when I know about all of the phenomenal things he's done, not just in the Washington, D.C. community, but across the country as a whole, I see that he is the epitome of mercy, compassion, redemption, and not just second chances. Roach, second chance, third chance, fourth chance. It's not even so much just about a second chance. But look what would have happened if he had just been, if the key of the prison had just totally been thrown away and there was no hope, no chance for him to really show the genius of which he is. Just like your father, Ebony. We're talking about a genius. We're talking about someone who is brilliant. When I hear him talk, I mean, it usually goes in one ear and out the other because he's so far above me intellectually, and I went to law school. In terms of the things that he's talking about, just what he could have been doing these past 31 years on the outside, as opposed to languishing away on the inside with all those skills and the talent and that genius, boxed up. So I just want to talk about the importance of letting people show how they can shine. Roach, you shine, my brother. Yeah. And if you were still locked away, in prison, the community, the nation, the country would be very much, much, much less because it would not have had the benefit. Thank
you for that, Nkechi. But one of the things that I look at is that when those men like William Underwood, I never met him. I heard about him. Guys have talked to me about him. Guys have been in institutions with him. And we get phone calls and letters from people from all over the country who go in and come out. And he is a hell of a man. Most men and women inside of institutions are like that. When you're isolated, you're placed in like prison. To me, it's like a microwave, and everything speeds up. Your intellect, your intelligence, your perception, all this stuff speeds up. And you got a lot of brilliant men and women in these institutions that can contribute and participate in society and save our community. We need to do the same thing. If they take into the streets for police brutality, all of us, there's over 10 million kids who got a parent in prison. If we got together and we take to the streets and demand, I know a lot of folks, I don't want to demand nothing because my father or mother might be, they being mistreated anyway. Yeah. They're dogging them on the inside anyway. So we got to demand them. They got the power to release us. And they released these 2 white guys, Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen, Trump's buddies. And one of the prisons that Manafort came in out was Loretto, Pennsylvania, a federal institution. I got a call from 2 guys in the prison that said that Paul Manafort was a push-up champion expert. He was the first one, the fastest one to get to 100 push-ups. All of a sudden, they released him, said he had some light medical issues, And for the threat of the coronavirus, they can release him on the threat. You got 1,200 more men in there. Wow. They're being threatened by the same thing. How come they not be released? So we, the mothers, the kids, the aunts, the grandmothers, we got to come together, take to the streets. If we got to do it state by state, prison by prison, I don't care. We talking about letting our people out. The house is on fire and Trump running around with a can of gasoline. And they ain't letting our folks out.
Wow. Woo. Again, this is a platform for y'all right now. I'm just learning in this moment. I'm truly learning and listening. Mr. Brown, thank you. And Kichi, thank you for your dedication to this work. Gosh, and Kichi, I want to ask, you know, we understand the harms, and damn, you know, excuse me, y'all. How many more decades are we going to go through? What are the solutions? Like, you know, for We Got Us Now, it's not just talking about our narratives. That is an important and a crucial part of the story. We have to talk about that. But what are the solutions? Kichi, you are the governor of the Justice Roundtable. They have tons of working groups that are working specifically on criminal justice reform. Please talk about what are some of the solutions that are being proposed around ending mass incarceration.
Okay, well, one of the things to realize is that change doesn't happen overnight, although it sure seems like it over the past month or so. But basically, change is really longstanding. I started working on the disparity between elimination of the disparity between crack and powder cocaine back in the early 90s. That was quite a long time ago. It wasn't until 2010 that disparity was reduced from the egregious 101 ratio to the 18-to-1 ratio. The issue dealing with reentry of formerly incarcerated people, I started working on that issue in 2002. That culminated in the Second Chance Reentry Bill in 2008. All of these were bills that the Justice Roundtable worked on. We helped to ensure that there were strong sentencing provisions in what passed as the First Step Act at the end of 2008, which it resulted in the disparity between crack and powder cocaine and people coming out under that who, because the bill was not retroactive back at that time. With the COVID-19 crisis, we were very helpful in getting the passage in the House, in the Senate with respect to the stimulus bill, particularly the fourth stimulus bill that brought monies, resources to be able to deal with the health and safety of people who are inside. That would also help to, we call for the release of people on the inside to the outside so that there could be even just a modicum of adherence to CDC guidelines because, you know, the massive overcrowding that is there, and resources for reentry as well. We're still fighting those fights and battles now. We're fighting the fights and battles in terms of the policing. We're in a double pandemic right now, a health pandemic due to the coronavirus, and then a policing pandemic due to these egregious police killings. You know, we worked with the House in terms of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It doesn't provide everything that we want far from it, but it is a first you know, step. So we're really hoping that these measures can really serve to make a difference. But again, true transformation does not happen overnight. And that's what the demand is on the table now. Not just for reform. We've moved beyond reform. We need transformation.
Transformation, yes.
I want to add something to it. You said, what can we do? With over 10 million of us who got a parent inside of institution, and when you consider the brothers, the sisters, the cousins, the aunts, it goes way past the 10 million. We had power. You had power. I mean, by bringing these folk together and convening folk to focus attention on this issue about getting our parents out of there. We have to step up and move a little faster. They are dying. If we looked at, they killed George Floyd, and that was transparent. It was on video. It was on iPhones. Everybody could see it. And they're doing the same thing to our parents inside. It's non-transparent. They can't see it. There's no communication. There's very little visit. I mean, we have to take to the streets and do the same thing that these protesters are doing around the world about police brutality and criminal justice, and make this correction piece of bringing our parents on a part of this, because they are part of it. The same way the cops lie when they lock somebody up on the police report, and they take an oath not to lie and tell the truth, and they lie on the police report, and the video proved them, and they don't get fired, they don't get demoted, they don't go to jail. If we lie, we go to jail. And they take an oath not to lie, and they lie on and stuff like this. So it doesn't matter what they say. Let's us mobilize, organize, and I'm planning something. I mean, I'll be in touch with you. Me and Nikichi got something on the table. We want to do a big, huge radio telethon, another one on focusing on getting our parents out. Lady, they're dying in there. I get calls every day from all around the country. Guys been in 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, and their mother died. Everybody in their family died. Then they tell them they can't get out because they made parole. But there's two conditions. You got to go through drug treatment, or you got to go to psychological services before your parole date becomes effective, but no programs are existing inside the institution. So how can you complete these two requirements and still be released? They have denying our men and women who've got parole, but I'm looking at compassion release for them people who've been locked up 20, 30 years, 2, 3 decades.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown, I was on one of your shows, and prior to COVID, you used to host it out of the Ben Chili's Bowl in Washington, yes. The historical landmark, which was incredible. I want to say this, I feel like there's so much interconnectedness into this moment, and at the same time into the experience of having a parent incarcerated or mass incarceration, both of those things which have created incredible rippling effects. As I have said, I believe that mass incarceration is a tsunami that has ripped across the country, communities and ripping apart families for decades, as you have now exclaimed and shared. And so, I feel like the difference between the injustices that we're seeing right now and the narrative, the difference in the narrative is that the people that are incarcerated, our family members, they made a mistake. And so they should never be considered. Everything is about punishment.
Yeah, and that's what it is.
If we took to the streets, how could we effectively, exclaim under this umbrella of a narrative that has been so negative and so derogatory and just so something that just does not even at any level truly project what I know you to be, what I know so many men that are still inside to be. Like, how do we share? It's forms like these that Dr. Muhammad has brought to everyone's attention in this experience. Thank you so much again, Dr. Muhammad, for this platform, because this is truly such an important conversation. You see, the people are showing up. We want to talk about this. We need more platforms to talk about this. This is truly important. Y'all, we do not have all the answers today. I know there's questions that are coming. Mr. Brown, I will say to you and Mikichi, please continue to tell us, keep us informed about the work that you all are doing. We all want to be part of this conversation. We all do need to be a collective in doing this work. It does, as Nkechi said, it is not one and done. It does take time. It cannot happen overnight, but we are past reform. Now we need to, as what's the word that you use, Nkechi? Now we need
transformation.
We need transformation.
Yeah.
We need real transformation. Nkechi, please share about this upcoming book that you are releasing. Please talk about this. I need the world to know.
Okay, well, I have a memoir coming out. Thank you very much, Ebony. It'll be out in a couple of months. It's called Black Power, Black Lawyer, My Audacious Quest for Justice. And I talk about what made me into the person that I am today. And it spans decades. It spans really the first 50 or so years of my life, what influenced me, what moved and grooved me, and the justice work that I'm doing today. So, and Ebony, thank you so very much for that shout out on my book, Black Power, Black Lawyer.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Brown, please tell us about your show. Where can we listen to your show? Where can we find your show? Tell us about what you're doing.
Okay, our show is called Crossroads. We're getting ready to go national. We're already national. It's called Crossroads. You can get it on your iPhone, 89.3 FM, WPFW, every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. We've been on the air for 12 years dealing with criminal justice, and we've been rated in the top 3 prison rights shows worldwide. So you can listen to the show every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Punch up if you got an iPhone, 89.3 FM. We deal with criminal justice topics, and nothing is off the table. And for you to call in, we like for you to help mobilize, organize, strategize, and energize this movement, because we got to get our parents out. Lady, they're dying. We had the George Floyd moment inside the institution. They got their knee on our whole body inside of there. We got to do something. And you mothers, our sons and daughters, y'all got power. If we can mobilize in state by state, if we got to do it on the virtual reality, I don't care. However we do this joogie boogie, we got to get it done to get our families out of these institutions. All they got to do is the law. Breaking the law is not illegal. It's illegal to get caught for breaking the law. You know what I mean? Everybody that broke the law, everybody ain't been caught for it. But the thing is, we're being overly punished, and everybody knows it's racism. Look at all the people in the street, and from all races, all the backgrounds, whatever. And there's more white people out there fighting for our rights than we are. So this is an opportune time to pull them here. They're talking about criminal justice reform. Bring our people out there with compassion release. They're dying in there.
Woo! Mr. Brown.
Free them all.
Mr. Brown.
What's the call? Free them all.
Free them all.
Y'all are on fire. Y'all are on fire. Wait, okay, I have one final question, and then we're gonna have to wrap because I got 2 minutes. One thing, how this work is so damn heavy. How have y'all remained committed to it as long as you have? Because I hope that I am not your age doing this. I hope things change. Please tell me what is doing. And Mr. Brown, we can start with you. Please tell me how.
I've been doing this since 1968, 52 years. And every time I want to stop, I can't do nothing. I can't get a job because they tell me I got a record. I went to jail for murder and got a life sentence, and the president commuted my sentence. That don't make no difference. I haven't been able to find a job doing nothing. So I have to create a job where people have to pay me or help me to do consulting work. They invite me to speak, etc. And every time I want to stop.
Wait, sorry. Did y'all hear that? Could somebody please hire Mr. Brown? He needs consulting work. We need to keep him employed. He is a powerhouse voice, and we need to keep him employed. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please continue.
You know, and one of the things is that we got to help each other. Lady, that school to prison pipeline, we got a lady out last week. She been in 15 years, 72 years old. She was a school teacher, and she got life like Alice Marie Johnson, directing traffic, taking a phone call and directing it. That's just too much time. We got the power to make a change. Get them damn churches together. They're sitting up there with a big bill sitting up there all day long. If each church in the city go to a prison every Sunday and take a busload of kids there and don't leave, I'm worried what they're gonna do to my son or my husband or wife. And they doing it anyway. And we ain't doing nothing. So we need to do something because they're getting ready to die. This ain't no joke. This ain't 6 months down the pike. If we don't get our people out of there, they're talking about 200,000 people by the end of July dying from coronavirus. And 8 of the top 10 hotspots of coronavirus are jails and prisons worldwide. Iran released 77,000 people from Iran. Brazil released 20,000.
That's right.
China releases some. France, Scandinavia. And we released less than 5,000 folks out of 175,000 in the federal system. And the state systems are releasing less than that.
And that is true.
And people are dying every day. And man,
thank you for your.
If I was 20 years old, I'd go back to jail.
Thank you for your passion and commitment, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. And Merry Christmas.
And Keisha, we got 1 minute. I'm going to end with you and Keisha.
Yes, I just want to say I do this work and I persevere because I love my people and I love my community and I love justice, and justice is love.
You all can.
I like that. That's powerful, Nikichi.
You all can find Nkichi at the Taifa Group, and you can find Mr. Brown at Inner Voices. Thank you both so much for joining me in this panel. I love you both. Thank you both. I appreciate you both.
Got the T-shirt on.
Dr. Muhammad.
Yes,
got us now.
All right, y'all. So I am about to go into, we're about to go into a break, and we're gonna go and break for lunch. And before we go into break for lunch, I want to highlight a video reel of some of the work that We Got Us Now is doing. As I shared, we are a content creation company, organization, excuse me, we're a content creation organization. And so we are going to go into this video that can show some of the work that we've been doing over the last 2.5 years. So hold tight, I'm about to share my screen and you all can get a glimpse of some of what we've been doing. Okay, wait a minute. I think I gotta be made a host in order to do that. You guys gotta make me a host in order for me to share. Let me try now. Nope, it's not working. Okay. Okay. You all have to make me a host in order for me to share. That was so good. That was so good. Oh my gosh. Wow, the intergenerational conversation got me hyped. They got me hyped. They were more excited than everybody this afternoon or this morning. Huh? Right? That's funny. Let me see now if I can go into it. Nope, it's not allowing me to. I don't know what's going on. I got to become a co-host, y'all. And then we can go into the video.
Ebony, you are.
Oh, really? It's not working for some reason. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Here we go. Let me pull up my video. Y'all, please enjoy this video and then have a great lunch.
More elderly people were dying in prison than being released on parole. That's why I became a part of RAP.
RAP, which again stands for Releasing Aging People in Prison.
Because at the time, RAP was the only grassroots organization that was addressing this crisis in New York, actually all over the country. The Get Tough on Crime political campaign against the Black and brown communities put so many people in prison for so long. They're now old men. They're not the 25, 27-year-old men no more. Now they're in their 60s. And the unique feature about these men is that most of them are educators. I came from that circle where we developed programs to transform our lives and then transform the young lives that were coming in. Because they didn't understand what they was getting themselves into. They don't understand that this beast has no mercy.
That's another thing I want to change is that you're basically stealing our money because they want all this money from us to make a call, to make a text, which is pointless because why are we paying you for him to type letters and send it to his child? And then also we're paying you and then you're treating him like nothing. We're giving you money for you to treat him like trash. Then you're throwing him in this cell or you're throwing him in this isolating place and we're giving you money like we're handing out free cookies.
And I got two New York representatives here, one from the LES, one from Harlem. Manny and Effie, please come to the stage. Come on up. These two young ladies are not only new members of We Got Us Now, but they've also been directly impacted as well. And so if you all would please cue the music. Do y'all need mics though, right? There's a mic. Please cue the music so that they can do their thing.
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
It's evening. It's evening.
Okay, it's evening. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm lost. This is so mesmerizing. It's so inspiring. I love seeing things like this.
This is a homage beat.
Let me go. He's tying up my wrist and she's kneeling down the door. I'm struggling. Isn't this a sin? I'm just trying to win. Now we're locked in, her and him hold me captive. Then she told me sit down. This girl is a big clown. I turn it around, heard it loud. It's a big pound. Freeze. Little do they know that sound. It was me. Yeah. Hit them with the heat and now they feel my energy. I'm a revolutionary. No victims near me. Long as they hear me speak the truth they try to keep from me. Third eye open so I see between the do's and don'ts. I know they won't let me free without the fight. The one that saves you from the light. They in disguise, they victimize. Try to deprive those who question shit like me who can't exist without an audience. Attention seeking, cause I got a reason. Diagnose me with my cause. No flaws at all. ADHD to free you all. Let me go. Oh. Yeah. Let me go. Oh. I know they're scared of me. I can see it in his face. They don't wanna see me free. But you know what? It's okay. Then he pull out a gun, knock one run. I just face it, make the matrix look like the basics. And they just don't know I'll break their whole like 1, 2, go skip the 3. And now they running from me. Oh, should've never let me go, oh no. I can't be controlled. My voice alone is turning heads. You can't deny that I'm a threat. They say what's on my mind. Expose those of your kind. Recognize you can't keep me in line. And you can't confine. Can't decide my purpose is much greater. Inspiring innovators. Rebel changes of the world. Unfurling truth amongst the youth. You stand for something. Run from nothing. Cannot let them see you coming. Oppression is a choice, man. They cannot take your voice. They trying to trap you in that hate, but find that passion in the race. Let me. Hey, you know how we go. It's not that hard. Oh. Let me go. I'm not hearing it. One more time. Let me go. Facts. Oh. Let me go. Oh. Yeah. I thank y'all.
That was dope. That was dope. That was so dope. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Wait.
Thank you for really inviting me and my friends and bringing me to these people because I make music in order to heal,
Absolutely.
We've been going through some things before I even got on this earth, before my mom even got on, before my mom's mom even got on this earth. And I feel like now is the time, and with y'all support, we're gonna make it happen.
That's right.
That's a fact.
Parental incarceration has impacted the lives of over 10 million children and young adults, leaving them to advocate for their parents' health and well-being while maintaining their own daily lives. I know this all too well because for the last 32 years, my siblings and I have been my father's sole support system, which has led me to create We Got Us Now. Upon my father's arrest, the government seized all of our family photo albums, leaving us with few tangible moments. So Father's Day was the one day that we gathered to take our annual family photo. Due to COVID-19, that just won't happen this year. Please join me this Father's Day in a virtual discussion about the unbreakable bonds that are formed when a parent is incarcerated. We will hear from 3 generations of men who've been impacted by parental incarceration. A father who's been formerly incarcerated, 2 sons who've been impacted in different ways by their father's incarceration, and a grandson who has experienced this incarceration of his grandfather and has used it to keep his life on track.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for staying tuned to our second day of our inaugural digital conference, highlighting the success and resiliency among children of incarcerated parents. It is with great pleasure to introduce to you this panel of phenomenal Black women, Dr. Baia Muhammad, Dr. Brittany Gatewood, Dr. Whitney Hollis, and Ebony Underwood. This panel introduces and engages participants in a critically honest dialogue about who are considered the experts and why are they considered experts. The panel presenters will challenge this concept as they seek to expand the definition of expert. In this conversational exploration of extensive lived experiences versus extensive learned experiences, directly impacted scholars and practitioners debate the importance of recognizing and respecting children of incarcerated parents as experts. Please unmute your mic and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sydney. I am excited about this panel. We had a wonderful morning of just laying the framework and the foundation. And so I'm hoping that we can just jump in a conversation mode. We can start with brief introductions about yourself and just your current work. Let's start with you, Dr. Hollins. We'll go to Dr. Gatewood, Ebony, and then I'll end it off.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Whitney Q. Hollins. I hold a PhD in urban education from the CUNY Graduate Center. My dissertation focused on children with incarcerated parents with lived experience as expertise. I am the author of the book Honest Test, a book for children that features a character who has an incarcerated parent, and also do some work on curriculum design around this topic as well.
Hello, everyone. As Dr. Muhammad said, my name is Dr. Brittany Gatewood. You might have heard me earlier talking in our opening session, but I am the project director for the research project with Dr. Muhammad on success and resiliency of children of incarcerated parents. I am a recent graduate of Howard University, HU, shout out. And so I earned my PhD in sociology, and my research concentrations are social inequality, which is race, sex, and class, and in addition to criminology and social movements. And my personal research is on social movements that occur within correctional facilities or carceral institutions, and how Black incarcerated women resist racism, sexism, and those type of things that go on while they are incarcerated. And so social movements that happen within carceral institution, as you heard earlier, lifting up these populations as political actors, that's lacking in the research.
Thank you. Honored to still be here and in conversation with y'all. All these beautiful Black women who are doctorates, who have their doctorates, I should say. Wow, thank you for allowing me to be in this space. My name is Ebony Underwood. I am the founder, CEO of We Got Us Now, which is a national nonprofit, nonpartisan organization and movement built by, led by, and about children and young adults impacted by parental incarceration, with the mission to do four guiding things: engage, educate, elevate, and empower this historically invisible population through the use of content creation. I believe that technology is the doorway and storytelling is the key to begin this conversation in an effective and safe and inclusive way. And so what we also do is provide safe and inclusive spaces. And we also produce advocacy-led campaigns to ensure that our voices are at the forefront of strategic initiatives, practices, and policies that will ultimately help to keep our families connected, to create fair sentencing from these draconian sentences that have dismantled our communities and ripped apart our families, and ultimately to end mass incarceration.
Thank you so much for all of your introductions. I am Dr. Bahia Muhammad, Associate Professor of Criminology in the Department of Sociology and Crim at Howard University. I am also the founder of this particular conference, as well as the primary investigator on this national study. One of the things that I think is important in terms of this dialogue is just to kind of begin the conversation on what you consider to be an expert. So when we think about experts, and of course we're talking about, in just life in general, not the research realm, not, just any individual expert, I think it would help to kind of frame the conversation around our definitions, and then I'll just read the general definition of what expert means. Is there anyone among us that wants to start with what you feel your definition of expert is?
I can start. And so when you pose a question, what an expert is, I think that academia has a warped perception about what an expert is. Because if you have lived that experience, you know about it, right? And a lot of times within academia and within research, you have to be objective, right? It has to be usually the white person is an objective person, and they can have a objective view about what's going on, and they could be the expert in it. And then experience of children of incarcerated parents or people that have certain experiences, they are just seen as subjective. You're too subjective to talk about this. You need an objective opinion. So for me, especially when we're talking about research around children of incarcerated parents, it's the people that have the experience. They know what it feels like. It's not just you read it and that's it. They experience it, they talk to other people. And so I think the definition of expert needs to be changed, because children of incarcerated parents knows what it's be like in that situation. They know how it feels like. They might not use these big academic terms or these theories or all these things to explain what's going on, but we don't take their words into consideration, that they are speaking to what's happening to them and giving us an in-depth look at what their lives are.
Right. So I would agree with that. I know for me personally, being a directly impacted person who then wanted to research directly impacted people, did have to be a conversation about my ability to be objective in that space and making sure I wasn't using my story to tell someone else's story. And so I had to be very clear that as, you know, as a researcher, as a scholar, I was going to be able to do that. And that actually, my lived experience was going to be an asset when I was going into work with or collaborate with the youth that I was working with. But I absolutely agree with what Dr. Gatewood was saying, is that I do think, especially in research, there's a hierarchy of research, right? And this quantitative numerical research is very high, which I really think doesn't lend itself well to the complex stories that children of incarcerated parents have to tell. So I think that's one issue. I think the other issue is this idea that you need to be completely objective. And by objective, they mean removed from this situation, you know, sort of the idea of this researcher standing outside with a lab coat looking in on people and seeing what they're doing. But that really takes away from the value and the color and the nuances of the experience. And you don't know the things that the people who are in it know. Just for me, even doing my research and talking to people, I was like, you know, I have had this experience, but even talking to the youth who had it, they were telling me things that I didn't know about their particular situation or what happened to them or how this works in this place versus how it works somewhere else. Because, you know, my father was in federal prison. Some of the people I interviewed, their parent was in state prison. And so I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So there's all these different things that really make the people who are experiencing it the experts. But unfortunately, when it comes to research, a lot of times the way they're looked at is just viewed as objects or participants instead of really being the experts on the topic. And I think as researchers, we really have to humble ourselves to who are the actual experts.
What are your thoughts, Ebony?
Woo. Dr. Hollins and Dr. Gatewood said a mouthful. You guys are so right. So for me, as in defining expert, I believe that an expert is someone that has had the experience. I know that, gosh, it evades my mind who the person is, but they're, Malcolm Gladwell. He says that after 10 years of doing any sort of thing consistently, you are considered an expert. Well, my experience in having had a parent incarcerated has been for 3 decades, 30 years. And so I know wholeheartedly that I would be considered an expert from that analogy. So when it comes to this particular issue, I do believe, as Dr. Gatewood and as Dr. Hollins have eloquently stated, I do believe that when it comes to this specific issue, the children and the young adults that have been impacted by this work are definitely the experts. However, the one thing that I would add is that that we come into this work with our direct experience, but there is so much work that is being done around reforming this issue that I believe that is extremely important to be able to equip these young people with this direct experience that are considered experts with the development, with the training, with the education about what is happening in the field, because your story alone is not going to help you defeat this monster. I mean, this is a monster that has been built for decades. And so I believe that what We Got Us Now does is we have been able to build out this actionist leadership community where we do just that.
Thank you. I'm going to read the definition. Expert, noun. So describing a person, place, or thing. There's also an adjective. A person who has a comprehensive and authoritative knowledge. I'm going to say that again, a person who has a comprehensive and authoritative knowledge of or skill in a particular area. For example, a financial expert, so to speak. The adjective, having or involving authoritative knowledge. So the 2 key terms there that resonate with me as it relates to what we're talking about: comprehensive and authoritative. So for me, it sounds like all of us are defined in that. For example, an individual who is a researcher that is not directly impacted could possibly have comprehensive knowledge. In the community, when you talk about the Black community, the brown community, they may not have that authoritative, because ultimately you get that from having respect with the community. So the community has to respect you in order to see you as an authority. So oftentimes the authoritative component of it would not come to play in academia. I think oftentimes when we think about this definition, it is warped, like Dr. Gateway talked about, in the sense that we are utilizing the framework from white supremacists, from the European perspective. But what I hear you talking about, Dr. Hollins, and also Ebony, is kind of this indigenous practice that we've kind of gotten away from when we decided that we were going to go into these ivory towers and do things the way that white men, so to speak, would do, because those were the researchers, like Dr. Hollins mentioned. You would kind of be in this lab coat and you're looking at something from afar. And so if you get up close on it, you know, maybe I can't trust your information. So we're talking about trust here. We're talking about the ability to disconnect yourself from something and for you to be a trustworthy individual. So we have to be honest about what individuals are talking about when they're talking about these experts. They're saying, you know, those individuals that are the offspring of individuals that are directly impacted are not trustworthy. These are not trustworthy individuals to be able to guide research, to be able to guide dialogue. And so the work that you all are doing as actionists and with We Got Us Now is more important than anything, because trustworthiness comes in hand with politics. So as long as you are galvanizing and working with the highest of the legislation, those individuals that determine policy, therefore you're considered to be trustworthy. And I think the work that Dr. Gatewood, and I want to hear a little bit more about it, she talked about in her keynote presentation, this concept of, you know, children of incarcerated parents aren't political activists. These are not individuals that are engaging. So, you know, they take the rights to vote from the parent and then they just erase the child because they know that you have the authority, the expertise, the lived experience, and the love of the community to really make a difference. But then it would push what the academy has to say out. And we know all of that is negative. And those negative things are what we're finding play itself out in the street with fear. It's rhetoric that creates fear. And therefore now you have law enforcement that are acting in this way. You have these draconian policies that are coming down on you because they're looking at it kind of like the super predator myth. So I'm happy that we are having this conversation because we are all on the same level when we say we have to expand the definition. We can no longer move in this sort of way. And with that being said, where do we go from here? What advice would you give us, Ebony, in the sense of moving on to the next phase? We know and understand and respect you all in this day as experts. It's clear. Look at the panels that you put together. Look at the information that's so holistic in terms of history, politics, structure, directly impacted. I mean, you touched all of the things that someone would take in a 101 class as a master's student or a doctoral candidate going into the community. So you've touched all of those levels of dialogue. What do we do from here? How do we help faculty members on college campuses, and I want to hear from both you and Dr. Hollins, in getting this to be the language and the way that individuals maneuver?
Well, I would start and say that it's the work that you all are doing. You know, Dr. Hollins and I work together and collaboratively in authoring a chapter in the second edition of the handbook on children of incarcerated parents. It's like the researcher's Bible on this issue. And so I think that it starts with the narrative and shifting the narrative. And, you know, I would really want to pass it over to Dr. Hollins. She's a part of We Got Us Now and also part of our research team. And, you know, she is the one that I would look to and listen to. And we've had tons of conversations around what this work should look like moving forward. So Dr. Hollins, please, you know, you speak more on this.
So one thing I just wanted to go back to, I thought it was so interesting what Dr. Muhammad did with the word authoritative. And Dr. Muhammad, your mindset is so like social justice warrior that you're like, yeah, because you're authority in the community. But I don't think that's how people take that word and the definition expert. I think researchers it comes with, like, when coming out of these institutions, I have a PhD, especially if you're a white person who graduates from this institution, there's an air of authority already with that, right? So that comes with an authority. And I've seen, you know, research that I'm like, this is BS, like, you know, whatever the case may be. But because, you know, it comes out of these institutions and it was peer reviewed and it's termed research and all these different things, I think it does carry an air of authority with it. And we have to be very careful with that because, you know, I've had conversations with Ebony and Dr. Muhammad about how, you know, we have this idea of research as like wholly objective, right? And that these people are, I'm just presenting straight facts, but all research has a purpose. And people present narratives in the way that they want. They, even if it's numbers, they're using numbers to tell the story that they want to tell. And for a long time, the story that people have been wanting to tell about children of incarcerated parents is these children are at risk. They're in danger. They might be grow up and become dangerous. You know, they aren't doing well in school. They're having all of these problems. Look at this, look at this, look at this. And that's the narrative that has been, you know, sent out to us. And we can't sit there and say that that narrative was not intentional, right? And it could have been intentional in the way that, you know, hopefully someone will take notice of this issue. Look, we're on fire, help us, help us. Or it could have been intentional about, you know, promoting narratives of Black and brown criminality for the future. Well, however you choose to look at it, I do think we need to view research as not so objective, even though ideally we'd like it to be that, right? But it is being conducted by humans. It's being written up by humans. These results are being analyzed by people. And then they are spinning the story that they want to tell with this information that they're getting. And I'm not excluding myself from that, right? I did my research and I decided what story I wanted to tell. But the difference is I'm trying to be very transparent about the fact that this is the story that I am telling with this is what I see from it. And I think that is directly informed by my own personal experience. So that's one thing. I think we need to reframe, you know, our ideas of research, of expertise, of what counts and what doesn't count, of who matters and who doesn't matter. And I think it's just absolutely, you know, insane to be like, oh, well, you're too close to this issue. Like, no, that's what kept me here. That's what made my work even better. That's how I connected to the people that I was working with and talking to. So I think that's extremely important as well. But a lot of the greatest suggestions for how to move forward come from the people who are directly impacted themselves. And I'm not even including myself in that right now, just because I'm older, I'm an adult, I'm kind of out of, you know, my father came home at this point, I'm kind of out of that space. And I have my memories, but these young people who are really out, you know, the actionists, people who are talking about what's going on, are extremely important for giving ideas how they move forward. I've seen a lot of great work by the youth at We Got Us Now, a lot of great work by the youth at Osborne, going to Albany, pushing legislation, creating video clips to get the messaging out, going to rallies, speaking up. So I think what we're really seeing now is just a younger generation taking charge, taking the lead, and making their demands. And for me, on my part, like, how can I support, is really trying to be in this other space, research, presentations, speaking, and really advocating for this change about how we even look at this topic altogether, controlling the narrative, telling the stories that I want to tell, and that support what I want people to know, which are, you know, similar to the vein of what you're doing, Dr. Muhammad, these narratives of resiliency and strength. So I think that's extremely important as well.
Absolutely. Dr. Gatewood, I know that you do mixed methodology. So we all understand the importance of numbers. We talked about this during day one, where it dehumanizes, it kind of takes away, and therefore these negative narratives can remain. This is a bigger argument, you all. You know, qualitative versus quantitative studies have went toe to toe. We know that there are more minorities, more Blacks and brown folk that are doing qualitative work, going into these communities, talking to those individuals that are directly impacted, but their work is not necessarily published. Their work is not accepted into this peer review realm. So there really is a system that is structured in a way to push all of that out. Are you able to speak a little bit to that in terms of your current research that you've done recently at Howard?
Yes, I want to go back a little bit to something you said before I come to that about what is considered expert. And one thing you said was like a demonstration of skill. I don't know if those are the exact words, but they have to have a skill. So, and kind of going back to the question that you asked Ebony and Dr. Hollins, is the fact of who's giving the okay that you have this skill. right? And I think of the white savior complex. Like, you're going into these neighborhoods, such as things like City Year and AmeriCorps for a year, and you did all the good stuff and then you left. Do you know what impact you had on those people? Do you actually gain a skill? Like, because the issue, especially with white supremacy and that type of thing, is like, once a white person might know a little bit about it, then they all of a sudden think they're experts in it. So people gaining these skills while doing stuff within the community, are you actually taking feedback from what the community members are saying? Like, who said you have this skill? Just because you have you on a CV doesn't mean you have the skill to be inside of a community, to talk within a community. Just because you have a PhD doesn't mean that you have the skills. Especially a lot of PhDs, a lot of professors can't teach to save their lives, but it's the fact of you have a PhD that you can now teach and you can go in these neighborhoods. So who has the skill is the question. Who's giving you this certification? You can work with children of incarcerated parents. So when we're talking about experts and skills, I just thought of like, who says you have that skill? And are you actually going back and evaluating your impact that you had and impacts that are going forward? Or are you just like, I did my job, I could put it on my CV and keep it pushing? So I think like when talking about skills and looking to the future, who is giving the okay that you have the skill? Are you actually making an impact, or are you making impact in your mind? Those are two different things. And then going towards kind of like qualitative versus quantitative, I think it's important within media, within everything, negative about Black people sells. Barely, the books that are so positive about Black people, they do not sell. So even the way, especially quantitative, and I talk to these in the classes that I teach, you can manipulate numbers however you want. So even when you talk about, because I always ask my class, who do you think is the most arrested in the United States? And they always say Black people. No, statistically, white people are arrested the most in the United States by millions. However, how we have warped the information is the fact of, you say that, Black people commit the most crimes, but you only take 2 crimes where Black people are the highest and use those statistics. White people are the highest in, I think it is sexual assault, and I think it's one more, and then Black people are highest in 2 other ones. So we're just going to take those 2 because Black people are highest and disregard white crime. And so when talking about research or talking about quantitative, you can manipulate numbers. And so what happens with qualitative work is, and I think Dr. Hollins said this earlier, is the nuances. There's stuff that, like me, I am not a child of incarcerated parent, but I have a brother that is incarcerated, right? Or I know other people incarcerated, but there's nuances that you would know that I would not know. Like if I just do a survey, it's very broad. Do you have a parent incarcerated? Yes. How do you feel? Bad, or whatever the thing is. But it's not saying like, okay, how does it feel every time you see, your parent's facility pop up on your cell phone? How does it feel when you email, or how does it feel when you can't go on holiday? Like those feelings and those experiences that you can't just tell by a survey. And so with qualitative work, you can actually talk about the nuances of it. And as the panel said yesterday, that you humanize these numbers, you humanize the statistics, is which I don't think that our research, like sociological and criminological research, does.
Absolutely. I think it's important as we're winding down in this conversation to really allow individuals to know that this was a conversation just to whet your palate and open up your mind. If you are a researcher, if you have a PhD, if you are a directly impacted individual, understand the components of white supremacy in your programs. It's easy. If you are interested in getting the directly impacted in as experts, bring them in, not as a consultant, as a PI or a co-PI. That means that you can write them directly into your study, where the majority of money, whatever the percentage is of the grant, it goes directly to those individuals. For example, we could bring in our co-presenter from the previous panel, Mr. Roach Brown. We could put him as a consultant and he will be paid, no background check, none of the different idiocracies that are going on. We could bring in Ebony Underwood. We could bring in Dr. Hollins. and allow them to serve as co-PIs. Once they come on the study, they decide who they hire. So now it becomes this web, kind of like a spider web, where we're all reaching out to each other, because we know in the academy, the biggest thing that you have with a PhD is to be able to write a grant, which means that you decide who you're hiring. When you hire individuals that are directly impacted, you empower them and you give them a track record. If you're going to respect their movements, allow them to be able to have that track record. Once they are on one grant, a lot of grants come down the pipeline. We all know how that works. One publication, 20 publications. That is the way that it works. Also, remember, the HBCU is not the enemy. When you go to HBCUs, it allows you to do something like we did with this panel, with this conference. The entire conference for 3 days is all directly impacted individuals, scholars or not, PhD or not. Individuals are speaking for themselves before a peer publication has been published on the study. That is unheard of. Typically, they write you into programs where you're not able to do that. How did I do that? I partnered with a foundation. Foundations allow you a little bit more freedom with the money. Secondary, think about indigenous ways and perspectives of analyzing research and articles. Now it is incumbent upon Dr. Gatewood, myself, Dr. Muhammad, Dr. Hollins, as a co-author with Ebony, to begin to write about this conversation. Let's move this conversation from this virtual space and use action, as Ebony is teaching us fully today, to be able to put it in the literature. Once you put it in the literature, it allows for those individuals that are oppressing you to now have your language on their palette. Now they're using your rhetoric. So we have to remember these kind of things. There are also indigenous institutions. There are historical institutions for Asians, non-Pacific Islanders. There's not just HBCUs. Reach out to those organizations, because we can move a little bit more creative and in a lot more innovative ways than you find at the white, at the universities that are predominantly white. Those are some of the ways that I've come up with just off of pulling from the pieces of this conversation. I will let you know that we are thinking about ways of expanding this. We plan to continue this conversation. We've already had conversations about co-publishing with Dr. Hollins and also with Ebony. And so we are going to move this forward, but we need your help. We need you to make sure that in your faculty meetings, in your student organizations, that you continue to bring the directly impacted into the dialogue. Please, please do not speak for them. Allow them to speak for themselves, regardless of if you have the experience yourself. Be the PhD with the experience, similar to Dr. Hollins that said, I'm gonna step back because my dad is home. I have a PhD. The younger individuals are walking through this now, and I have my memories to connect to them, which means she still has the respect to go back to the hood and bring the hood to the table. So at the end of the day, like, never forget where you come from. And regardless of what your degree is, don't ever look at somebody that they're not an expert because they didn't read as many books as you, because everything you read in those books, they have lived it. In the same way that Ebony told us during her keynote, when she found out the term that she was living, she had to do the research to make sure that they got it right. And once we get it right, then we empower those that have the power of movement and capacity to do the work they need to do, which means we got to get out their way. And that's not nothing from a disrespectful platform. That is a sign of respect. When you allow the individuals that have all of the experience in their eyes and in their hearts to move forward. A closing remark I would like to get from each of you. We are out of time now, and we'll have to move into the next session. But I just want to get a closing statement from everyone, and then we'll close this session out.
I'll start and just say thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Gatewood, for lifting up the importance of qualitative data. That's a lot of what I bring to this world, is qualitative data. So I appreciate that wholeheartedly, and for you acknowledging that. Again, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yeah, again, I just want to thank everyone for being here, for sharing this space. And I just want to Dr. Muhammad, I don't know if I fully went there, but where I would like to see this go would be a lot of participatory action research with youth actually involved in designing the studies and dealing with the issues they would like to see. So for me, if I'm thinking of the future of that and how we do what you're talking about and bring in the real experts and legitimize this, it would be the participatory action research. That's really why I would like to see this go.
I would like to see, as Dr. Muhammad mentioned, that directly impacted people are brought into the research. And as she said, like Mr. Brown or Ebony, or people that can be written onto grants or come in as a guest speaker, and those type of things, and integrate them within our research. I think it would be richer. I think it would get people more excited about research, like hearing these things and reading these things, because half these books are very bland. It's just like, okay, but when you actually read someone's story, it's like, oh, you get involved and engulfed into it. And so I just hope that future research includes this population in a positive way and not manipulate or subject them negatively, and that especially people of color are who are impacted more than white people are in the research, and they say their piece too, instead of just white scholars being the experts in these areas.
Thank you all so much for this discussion, which I like to just call a public service announcement. We can no longer allow the research to ostracize us, to stigmatize us, and ultimately kill us, because the language, when it is negative, it sends out a sense of fear. And it takes an individual to know the words first before they feel justified in their actions. We see it playing itself out right now in our streets. Coming up next is our lunch. For lunch, we ask that you get your lunch and bring it back. We're going to have our book exhibit. We'll be highlighting a book from our esteemed panel today, Dr. Hollins, for Anna's Test. Please make sure that you view that link. We also have videos where she did a personal presentation on the book, who it was for, and why we should focus on resiliency as opposed to all of the negative connotations that individuals talk about with the population. This book is directly connected to her research, and I ask that you all go and read her dissertation that gives a more detailed explanation around who the real experts are, and more importantly, why we should be looking at this angle of success and resiliency. Thank you all.
Hello, I'm excited that you all have joined into the virtual book exhibit. We have some wonderful authors and wonderful books that are a part of this actual exhibit. Today, we have one of our esteemed authors, Mrs. Jasmine Johnson, and she's going to be talking to us today about Nori's Tinkle Collar, as well as her new publication that's out, I believe, on pre-order, but I'll give her an opportunity to share that with you. So without further ado, I introduce you all to Miss Jasmine Johnson, who is the author of Nori's Tinkle Collar.
Hi guys. So Nori's Tinkle Collar is my first children's book that I self-published myself. And for those of you who don't know what Nori means, Nori itself, the word means delight. So for me, as I was doing research for the book, I didn't see any children who looked like me in children's book, probably like one or two books, and that was just not okay for me. So Nori, her presence alone, her being Black, her being Muslim, sheds light on some of the things that are important to me, and I believe that should be broadcast to the world. So just Nori's Tinkle Collar in general, she is, has this brilliant plan for her 10th birthday, and she's trying to get this thing that she's been asking her parents for 2 years now, and they keep telling her no. So we go through the process of learning what Nori has to do, and we go through the process of her seeing her being determined after her parents kind of like shut her dreams down, so to say, and just how persistent she continues to be even after she's told no. So she eventually does get the thing that she wants to get, but I think it's important for our children to see what hard work really looks like when you believe in yourself. Like, yes, even your parents are going to tell you no. Your parents may not, want you to have something, but when you believe in yourself, you'll like do whatever it is that you need to do to get what you want. So that's really what I wanted to convey. Part of the things that I wanted to convey as I created this book for our children. And the book is typically, I tell parents, anywhere, like, I know some parents read this book to their children for bedtime. It's long for bedtime, but it's doable at the same time for bedtime. And then, children who are 9 and 10 years old who may still be struggling readers is good for them too. So I would say anywhere as you're reading kids into 10, maybe 10 years old, 9 and 10 years old, that's the age range that I made this book for. But anyone really, some adults have purchased the book because of the message that Nuri sends as she goes through her process. So anyone is able to read it and connect to Nuri on some type of form, especially being discouraged and still being able to go after your dreams, so to say. So,
okay. And I believe there's a companion to this. Did you recently publish a new book? And if so, can you share with us?
Yes. So Nuri's Tinkle Collar now has a coloring book version. So here is the coloring book version to the book, and it has some of the images from the book, the original book itself, but then it has some activity pages. I think I have 2 writing prompts in here. I have some word searches. So like this page here is a word search. Some of my friends wasn't expecting when they got the book for their kids. They were like, this is an activity book, so I have like some tic-tac-toe in here. So as we're home, especially right now, or just in general, some bonding time, like some friendly competition between you and your kid, like, have some tic-tac-toe, and the writing prompts are in there as well to help kids with their writing. Just about, if you had to invent one thing, like, what would it be? Like, what would you be doing? So I definitely have these 2. And we'll put the links up for them to be available. We also have Nuri custom crayons as well. So we have an 8 count of like a customized crayon box that has Nuri's image on the front. Some parents are like, I am gonna save this as a collectible. The kids can't even use it. But we have all of that stuff available. I don't have an image of it right now because they're sold out right now, but I'll have some more in the next 2 weeks for for everybody to have, for them to be available. So these are my 2 babies. One day Nuri will create something else. I know what she is going to create. I just haven't written the story. So, yeah. So that'll be available one day too.
Okay, so that's exciting. Can you please share with the viewers where they can learn more about you? I don't know if you have a website. If you could share some of your social media handles, that would be great.
Yeah, so the website to all of Nuri's items, the coloring book, the regular children's book, and the crayons, and also a blurb about me, is on, the website is called thenuricollection.com. So thenuricollection.com is where you'll see all of her products up there. And then my personal social media, I have my business tutoring page is JM Tutors. That's on Instagram, and then Nuri's Instagram also is the Nuri Collection as well. So her website is the Nuri Collection, and Instagram is the same thing. And my business page on Instagram is also JM Tutors, where you find out all of my tutoring stuff, education stuff is all on those 2 platforms.
Okay, and so they can find all of that information as well on the website.
Yep.
Okay, all righty. Yep. So that's definitely great. Thank you so much for your participation in the virtual book exhibit. I always want individuals to just see and, gain a better understanding of the many, many, many amazing things that children, specifically of incarcerated parents, are doing across the nation. And I'm sure there's so many children that this is bringing a smile into their household when they're able to see somebody on a book that actually looks like them, or within a family that's just teaching about different kinds of individuals, different ethnicity and races and religions that are kind of out here. So we definitely thank you for that.
Individuals will be, clicking on these links throughout the following weeks. In the event that anyone from a school environment wants to place a bulk order, do you have the capacity to be able to fulfill those?
Yeah, so if they so on the website, you can send me like a personal message through a contact, and I believe that I also have my email up there as well. But if we want to purchase a bulk order, and if you don't see it on the website, my email is jmtutors, which is the same as my Instagram, jmtutors16@gmail.com. So jmtutors16, the tutors has an S at the end. Some people just leave off the S. So jmtutors16@gmail.com, and just send me an email and say, hey, Jasmine, I would like to purchase, 30 books for my school. Okay. And usually when I have book orders, because I did that for a school in Newark. Okay. I sell them at a discounted rate because it's so many. They purchased like 50 books, and I just sold them for $10 a book versus the 16, right? And then if there's more, then I will obviously, adjust it as we go along. But for sure, if you would like a bulk order of the book or the coloring book or the crayons, like just send me an email and just let me know, and I'll get that out to us.
Okay, so for all of the teachers that are in the virtual space, please make sure that you take that contact information down, but also underneath this video, you will see the links that were provided. And I hope you guys enjoy this book as much as I have. Ms. Jasmine Johnson, thank you so much just for your participation in the overall study, but also again for being an example for children of incarcerated parents around the world. You are doing phenomenal things, and we look forward to reading that next invention that Nori tackles and what she comes up with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greetings, Dr. Muhammad here with the Dr. Muhammad Experience at Howard University. Today we are excited to welcome you to the Children of Incarcerated Parents National Study on Resilience and Success. For this 3-day virtual conference, you all have access to a plethora of information, but I am excited to welcome you to our virtual book exhibit. I hope you all have had an opportunity to view all of the videos from our authors who are directly impacted, as well as had an opportunity to explore their books and most importantly, to purchase. I'm excited about this particular publication, which is forthcoming. So you can place your orders in advance. If you are professors, you can review a copy, but we actually have Dr. Willingham with us today, who was our keynote presenter for day one of the plenary session to end the conference for day one. Today, we're gonna have an author meets critic, and we'll get to know a little bit about what went into creating this specific publication. Welcome, Dr. Willingham, how are you?
I'm fine, Dr. Muhammad, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. If you could just introduce yourself, briefly, you've done a lot. On the website, we do have your bio. So hopefully individuals will go and look at that. But can you just share a little bit about what you're doing now and the current projects that you're working on?
Sure. So as I've said before, Dr. Bria Willingham, and I'm an associate professor at SUNY Plattsburgh, way upstate New York, and I teach in the criminal justice department there. So I teach courses on punishment in society, women in the criminal justice system, race, crime, and justice, and media crime and criminal justice, and wrongful convictions. So my teaching and my research, I like to make sure that they are connected so that I am able to bring my work that I do as a researcher into my classroom. So one of the ways in which I did that was through a special topics course I taught a couple years ago called Higher Education in Prison. And so the purpose of that was, several purposes of that, but one was to give the students the perspective, a different perspective of mass incarceration in looking at the issues of mass incarceration through the lens of higher education and how higher education works inside of prisons to help reduce actually mass incarceration, and one of the ways in which it does that. Also, my work with really looking at mass incarceration and looking at the issues of prison from a more sociological perspective and looking at how prisons impact communities and families, which led to my my text, Punishment in Society, which is based on the class that I teach. So I'm really, in all the work that I do, I'm really interested in not necessarily looking at how prisons work as far as, this is a warden or this is a correctional officer or, those types of things, but really how the people who are both living and working inside and the families of the incarcerated, how they experience prison, because we all experience prison in one way or the other.
Interesting, very interesting. So as I see here, this will be available in 2021. What classes do you think this would be good for? Was it targeted towards undergraduate, graduate? Can practitioners use it? How do you envision it being used?
Well, it can be used in, of course, criminal justice and criminology courses, but also in sociology courses or in gender women's studies courses, particularly those courses that look at families. I would say those are the primary ones. So criminology, criminal justice, sociology, and gender women's studies. So those are the types of courses that I had in mind when I was, choosing the readings for this anthology.
Okay.
And,
all right.
yeah, and so the purpose of this anthology was really just the same purpose that I use for my class, and that is, again, to give a different perspective about what it means to punish someone in our society. So I chose the readings that pertain to incarceration's impact on communities as a whole, but then also on families in particular and on children as well, the economic impact of punishment on society. So again, there are no readings in here that look at the prison itself as in, how prison works, but all of the readings I chose were to drive home that once someone is incarcerated, that is not the end of the story. In fact, it is the beginning of the story, because there are so many other lives that are impacted by incarceration.
Interesting. I know for your keynote, which was phenomenal, that you talked about prison being your family business. Is that chapter actually included in this book?
Yes, and that is actually the second chapter that I included. And in that reading, again, it's looking at the relationship between incarcerated Black fathers and their children and how that incarceration impacts that relationship. And so I told that story through my perspective as a Black woman with incarcerated relatives. At that time, it was my father, my brother, and my nephew. But now it's just my brother, and my nephew. And